So there I was, 16 years old, skinny as a chopstick, standing in the middle of a freezing village square while snow tried to murder my ankles. Welcome to my life. Let me back up. My parents starved to death 6 months ago. Yeah, real cheerful start. And I'd been surviving on whatever scraps my Uncle Chin Fu and the village kids snuck me. My rice jar had maybe half a bowl of rice left, and honestly, half of that was sand. I was basically a scarecrow with a heartbeat. Now, the government had this brilliant program. Here's a wife. Now go die in a war. Romantic, right? Every guy who took a woman had to go fight on the front lines afterward. So basically marriage was just death with extra steps. But if you didn't pick someone, they'd drag you to the battlefield anyway. Lose-lose situation. Classic. 5 grumpy officials were stomping their feet in the cold, waiting for me. The last bachelor. Because apparently I told my uncle I was taking a dump. I wasn't. I just really didn't want to go out there. Uncle Fu dragged me to the square anyway. Village Chief Wang was yelling at me to hurry up and pick a sturdy one who can cook and make babies. Thanks for the romance advice, Grandpa. I looked at the leftover women. Most had already been picked. 8 were left, all skinny, freezing, miserable. Just like me. We were basically a matching set. 2 caught my eye though. A tall one with weirdly good posture for someone covered in dirt, and a shorter one glued to her side like a bodyguard. Something about them felt different. I was about to point at just one when ding. A freaking robot voice popped into my head. Host Chen Xian, Universal Enhancement System binding complete. I'm sorry, what? Mission, marry all 8 remaining women. Reward, starter pack and system unlock. My brain did a full shutdown and reboot. I'm standing here in rags. I own literally half a bowl of sandy rice, and some voice in my head wants me to collect wives like trading cards? But then it hit me with the kicker. Skip this mission and you'll be drafted. Death probability, 99.9%. Well, when you put it that way, I did the math. Die alone, or die trying to feed 8 people. At least option 2 came with a mystery prize. So I pointed at all 8 of them and said, I'll take them. All of them. You could have heard a snowflake land. The entire village went silent. Then it exploded. Village Chief Wang nearly ripped my ear off. You're insane. 8 mouths. You can't even feed your own mouth. Uncle Fu looked like he was about to faint. Boy, we can barely keep you alive. The villagers were placing bets on how fast I'd starve. Real supportive community. But the head official? He loved it. Slapped my back so hard I almost coughed up a lung and said, Great spirit, kid. He just wanted to dump his unsold inventory and go drink. So he stamped the paperwork, made me ink print it, and bounced. Deal done. No refunds. Legally binding. So now I'm walking home with 8 women trailing behind me like the world's saddest parade. We get to my house, and I use that word very generously, because it was basically 4 walls that hated each other, held together by stubbornness and mud. The door didn't even close properly. I opened my rice jar to show them our food situation. Half a bowl of sandy rice stared back at us. 9 pairs of eyes stared at it. The rice did not multiply. I gave them my best smile, which probably looked like a dying fish, and said, So, make yourselves comfortable? Then the voice came back. Starter pack delivered. 1 rusty spear tip. I looked down. There it was in my hand. A sad, rusty chunk of metal. Thanks, universe. Very generous. Mission, make a spear. Hunt food. Reward, strength of 3 grown men and 50% speed boost. First hunt guaranteed success. Okay, now we're talking. Strength of 3 men? I currently had the strength of 3/4 of 1 man on a bad day, so this was a serious upgrade. I grabbed a stick, tied the rusty death poker to it, told my 8 new wives, be right back, and charged into a blizzard to fight animals with a tetanus stick. Behind me, I heard the tall woman whisper to her companion, Let's wait and see. She had no idea. Neither did I, honestly. But for the first time in months, I wasn't just trying not to die. I was actually doing something. 9 people counting on me, a rusty spear in my hands, and a crazy robot voice in my head. This was either the beginning of something legendary or the world's most elaborate way to freeze to death. Either way, let's go. So picture this. Me, a human stick figure, charging into a blizzard with a tetanus spear to fight wild animals. Peak life choices. The system told me there was a wild boar group about a mile northeast. Cool. Love that. Nothing says, first date night, like hunting pigs in a snowstorm for your 8 new wives. But here's the wild part. My body actually felt good. Like, I was practically speed walking through snow that usually ate me alive. The system's speed boost was kicking in, and for the first time in my life, my legs weren't betraying me. I felt like a slightly less pathetic person. Revolutionary. I found the boars. 5 of them, digging through the snow for food. And the big one, half my height, tusks like kitchen knives, built like a furry boulder. The system basically put a red target on him and said, "That one, great." My first opponent outweighed me by probably 3 times. I snuck around like a cat. Well, the system told me how to sneak like a cat, because normally I sneak like a drunk donkey, and got behind the herd. The big boy raised his head, sniffing the air. My heart was beating so loud I thought he'd hear it. Then I threw that spear with everything I had. It went through his neck, clean through. The boar dropped like a sack of rice, and didn't get back up. I stood there staring at my own hands like a crazy person. Me, the guy who struggled to carry a water bucket last week. Just one shot to bore the size of a small horse. Then the system hit me with the real magic trick. I thought, decompose, and the boar's body literally glowed and sorted itself into neat piles. 20-something pounds of clean meat, a full pig skin, bones, and even the guts, packaged separately like some kind of ancient butcher delivery service. No mess, no blood on my hands, nothing. This system was basically a supernatural kitchen appliance, and I was in love. On the way back, the system also pointed me to some frozen wild vegetables, and, get this, ginseng. Actual ginseng. Small ones, sure, but in a famine year, ginseng was basically gold you could eat. I stuffed everything I could carry and headed home feeling like the world's skinniest millionaire. I kicked open my broken door at dusk, and all 8 women looked up at me from around a campfire they'd somehow built. Points for initiative, ladies. The tall one, still didn't know her name, stood up and said, cool as ice, "You're back." She was poking the fire with a stick, and the firelight hit her face and, okay, underneath all that dirt, she was actually kind of stunning. Like, unfairly so. Not the time, brain. Focus. I dropped 20 pounds of fresh pork on the floor. You should have seen their faces. 8 pairs of eyes went completely round. 2 of the younger girls' stomachs growled so loud it was basically a duet. No one said a word. The meat spoke for itself. I got to work. Fat chunks into the clay pot for oil, lean meat sliced thin with wild vegetables for soup. Within minutes, the whole shack smelled like an actual restaurant instead of sadness and mold. The shorter girl, the one who'd been glued to the tall woman, crept over and whispered, "Can I help?" Her name was Chun Tao. I'd learn later. I handed her a knife and told her to scrape the pigskin clean. Suddenly, everyone wanted a job. Firewood collecting, vegetable washing, floor cleaning. My house went from abandoned ruin to functioning household in about 10 minutes. Women are terrifyingly efficient. I served 8 bowls of meat soup. Handed the first one to the tall woman because, I don't know, she had main character energy. She didn't need it though. She passed it to the weakest looking girl and said, "You first." Okay, respect. They all ate. Some of them cried while eating. Not dramatic crying, just quiet tears rolling down while they chewed. They hadn't had real food in who knows how long. I pretended not to notice because I'm emotionally mature like that. I was also crying a little. The soup was really good. Then Uncle Fu showed up with half a bag of rough rice, and my nephew Wong, who brought sweet potatoes. Still warm. These people had almost nothing themselves, and they were sharing it with me, the village idiot who just adopted 8 mouths to feed. My nose stung. I'm not gonna lie, I almost lost it right there. After they left, the tall woman finally introduced everyone. Her name was Xiao Ruoli, and she had the vibe of someone who used to be important. Chun Tao was her maid. Then there was Lu Mei, oldest, sewing expert. Linger, smiley one, knew herbal medicine. And the Lee sisters, Wan, Lan, Ju, and Mei, 4 farming specialists. Let me do the math on what I accidentally assembled. A seamstress, an herbalist, for farmers, a maid, and a mysterious noble-looking woman with cheekbones that could cut glass. I didn't pick a wife. I picked an entire civilization starter kit. I told them, if I eat, you eat. Shaoroli looked at me with this expression I couldn't read, then just nodded and said, okay. That night, they slept by the fire while I sat by the door with my spear, guarding them. The wind died down. The moon came out. I had meat in the pot, ginseng under the bed, a magic system in my head, and 8 women who were technically my wives sleeping 3 feet away. 6 hours ago, I was a starving orphan pretending to use the bathroom to avoid picking a bride. Now I was running a household. Life comes at you fast when a robot voice in your skull starts giving orders. I woke up because my house was trying to freeze me to death. The fire was out, wind was blowing through every crack, and I was about to go add more wood when the system decided to ruin my morning. Main quest: become a real husband with one of the women. Today, reward: farming knowledge and stamina boost. Fail penalty: system locked for 3 days. I'm sorry. What? My face went so red it could have melted the snow outside. I looked at the 8 women sleeping around me. Xiao Ruoli was frowning in her sleep. Chun Tao was curled up like a scared bunny. Lu Mei was spooning Linger. And here I am, a 16-year-old kid whose entire romantic experience was exactly 0, being told by a robot voice to go consummate a marriage. Before bedtime. System, can I swap this quest? Please. Literally anything else. I'll fight 2 boars. 3 boars. A bear. Give me a bear. Tasks cannot be changed. Cool. Very cool. Love that for me. I escaped outside to breathe cold air and have a small crisis. Then the system threw me a lifeline. A side quest to go catch fish at the river. Yes. Fish. I can do fish. Fish don't require emotional intelligence. I grabbed my knife and rope, and Chun Tao woke up and asked to come along. She said she could collect firewood. Her face was pink. My face was pink. We were 2 pink-faced idiots walking silently through the snow to a frozen river. The system gave me a magic fishing net, woven willow with glowing silver threads, because apparently my system shops at Enchanted Walmart. I chopped a hole in the ice, dropped the net in, wiggled it around, and boom, 6 fat fish on the first pull. Chun Tao literally clapped. Her eyes lit up like little stars, and honestly, that was really cute. Shut up. I kept fishing. Every single pull brought more fish. In 30 minutes I had a full bucket. Meanwhile, Chun Tao had collected a mountain of firewood and built a little stone stove. This girl was a productivity machine. Then I sliced my hand on the ice like a genius, and Chun Tao pulled a clean cloth from nowhere and bandaged me up. When her fingers touched my skin, we both flinched like we'd grabbed a lightning bolt. We stared at anything except each other for about 30 seconds. On the walk home, we actually talked. Her family died in a disaster. Government shipped her around for months, and Xiao Ruoli had been protecting her the whole time. I told her my story too. She teared up and promised she'd never be a burden. I looked at her red frozen nose and thought, okay, maybe she's the one. For the quest. The quest. That's what I meant. Back home, the house was already transformed. The women had cleaned everything while we were gone. Lu Mei gutted the fish like a professional. The Lee sisters boiled water. Lunch was creamy white fish soup with green onions, and it smelled so good I wanted to cry into it. Xiao Ruoli sipped her soup and gave me a suspicious look. Where'd you learn to fish like that? That net looks unusual. Old Hunter taught me, I said, sweating. Real smooth, Chen Xian. She didn't push it, but she gave me that. I'll figure you out eventually. Look. The afternoon was actually nice. The Lee sisters and I checked the vegetable plots for spring planting. Lu Mei patched my jacket so well it looked almost new. Linger sorted herbs. And Xiao Ruoli sat reading some old book by the fire, sunlight falling across her face like a painting, looking like she belonged in a palace, not my garbage house. But the quest timer was ticking in my head like a bomb. I kept sneaking glances at Chun Tao. She kept sneaking glances at me. We were basically 2 nervous satellites orbiting each other all afternoon. Night came. Dinner ended. Everyone huddled by the fire. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I walked up to Chun Tao and said, with all the smoothness of a brick falling downstairs, Chun Tao, can you come with me for a moment? Her face went red from chin to hairline. She looked at Xiao Ruoli like a kid asking mom for permission. Xiao Ruoli nodded. Chun Tao followed me to the bedroom, which was just a section of the shack divided by a curtain, with a wooden plank bed and some straw. We stood there, in silence, breathing loudly. The awkwardness was so thick you could build furniture with it. I tried to speak. My tongue forgot how words worked. She was gripping her sleeves so hard her knuckles were white. Finally, I just grabbed her hand. She jumped but didn't pull away. Her hand was freezing. I wrapped both my hands around hers and managed to say something like, we're married. So, Eventually we have to. Peak romance. Shakespeare could never. She said, in a voice so quiet only dogs could hear it, then started crying. Wait, don't cry. We don't have to. I can tell the sis. I mean, we can wait. I want to, she said, looking up at me with wet eyes. As long as I'm with you. I'm willing, and my brain just stopped working. I hugged her. She smelled like grass and wood smoke. She was shaking, but she hugged me back. Out in the main room, I'm pretty sure nobody slept. Lu Mei was reportedly holding Lingyer's head against her chest, like noise-canceling headphones. The Lee sisters were having a silent eye conversation of pure embarrassment. And Xiaoruoli? Poker face as always. Except her ears were bright red, and she hadn't turned a single page in her book for 20 minutes. I won't go into details because a gentleman doesn't kiss and tell, but I will say this. Two people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing, on a straw bed, in a shack with 7 eavesdroppers on the other side of a curtain. It was less romantic evening and more awkward teamwork exercise. Afterward, she curled up against me like a kitten, tear tracks still on her cheeks but smiling. She whispered, I'm yours now. I held her tighter and made a silent promise that I'd give all of them, all 8, a life worth living. The system chimed with its reward notification, but honestly, I didn't care about the farming knowledge or the stamina boost right then. I just lay there with Chun Tao sleeping in my arms, moonlight coming through the broken window, and thought. Yesterday, I was an orphan with half a bowl of sandy rice. Tonight I have a family. Also 7 women definitely heard everything through a curtain made of rags, and I will never be able to make eye contact with any of them at breakfast tomorrow. But that's a problem for future me. Dawn. Eyes not even open yet. System already nagging. New quest. Build a full fishing net today. Reward. Automatic fishing. Drop the net at night. Wake up to free fish. 0 effort. I shot out of bed like someone lit my straw mattress on fire. Auto fishing. That's not a reward. That's a lifestyle. I was born for laziness, and the system knew it. Chun Tao was still sleeping next to me, smiling in her dreams, face all pink and peaceful. I tucked the blanket around her and tiptoed out like a ninja. Opened the curtain. 7 pairs of eyes staring right at me. Lu Mei was sewing. Linger was sorting herbs. The Lee sisters were looking at the floor. Nobody was doing what they pretended to be doing. They were all waiting to see the morning after version of me, and I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. Then Chun Tao walked out behind me, saw everyone staring, turned the color of a tomato, and hid behind my back. We were the most obvious couple in the history of couples. I'm going fishing, I announced way too loudly, and practically sprinted for the door. Linger, the cute chubby-cheeked herb girl, volunteered to come. I know river vegetables. They make fish taste amazing. Xiaoruoli stood up too. I'll help. So off we went. Me, the mysterious noble beauty, and the enthusiastic foodie. Great combo. At the river, the system gave me fish lure powder, which I'm pretty sure was just magical fish cocaine, because the second I sprinkled it in the water, every fish in a mile radius lost their minds. I also started weaving a net from willow branches following system blueprints, and my hands moved like they'd been doing this for 30 years. Finished a small net in under an hour. Enhanced it with the system. Dropped it in the water. Pulled it up. 30 pounds of fish. Linger screamed with joy and started identifying every plant within arm's reach. This is water celery. This is purslane. This is perilla. Dry it, and it makes fish soup taste so good you'll swallow your own tongue. She shoved the purple herb in my face with the excitement of someone showing you a winning lottery ticket. I called her Little Chef, and she smiled so hard her eyes disappeared. My heart did a weird thing. Noted. Meanwhile, Xiaoruoli was calmly sorting fish into baskets with surgeon-level precision, and when I tried to take all of them, she said, leave some. The fish need to breed. This woman was thinking about ecosystem management while I was thinking about dinner. She was operating on a different level entirely. We hauled the fish home like conquering heroes. I sent half to the village chief, Uncle Fu, and Wang Hu's family. Village Chief Wang's eyes nearly fell out of his head. Boy, what kind of luck did you step in? Uncle Fu grabbed my hands and almost cried. Wang Hu swore to personally guard my fishing net with his life. Back home, Linger took command of the kitchen like a tiny general. Big ones, stew. Small ones, dry them. She directed everyone with the authority of someone 3 times her age and size. We made perilla fish stew for lunch, and the smell traveled so far I'm pretty sure fish in the river were jealous. Linger ate the most. She had soup on her chin and looked like a happy little cat who'd raided the pantry. Every few minutes she'd shove food at me. Eat more? You worked hard today. Her eyes were so bright and earnest, and I realized, oh no, she's adorable. This is a problem. A good problem, but still. Afternoon, net weaving session. Shaoruoli helped, and her knots were neater than mine, which was honestly a little humiliating. We sat close together, and she smelled like ink and old books, and I had to physically command my brain to focus on weaving. Linger hummed songs while drying fish, periodically delivering sweet potatoes to me like a supply chain of affection. By evening, the full net was done. Huge thing, big as a bedsheet. System confirmed, auto fishing activated. From now on, fish just showed up every morning like a newspaper subscription. The future was looking delicious. Dinner was iron pot fish stew with dried fish and wild greens. Linger ate 3 bowls and still had room to lecture everyone about which herbs help digestion. She kept piling food on my plate while looking at me with those big, sparkly eyes, and I thought, yeah, it's her. She's next. Wait, that sounds terrible. Let me rephrase. The system needed me to. Look, you know what? There's no good way to say this. Night fell. Everyone by the fire. I took a deep breath, walked to Linger, and said, come with me. Her face went red instantly, but she didn't cry like Chun Tao. She just grabbed her own sleeves really hard and followed me. Chun Tao squeezed Linger's hand on the way and whispered, don't be scared, sisterhood in action. Inside, Linger stood there shaking slightly, then hit me with the most unexpected question. Is it because I eat too much? I burst out laughing. This girl thought I was bringing her to the bedroom to discuss her appetite. You idiot, I said, ruffling her hair. I like that you eat a lot. Means you're healthy. Her eyes went watery. Really? I pulled her close. She was small and warm, like holding a little space heater. I asked if she was okay with this. She said, in a voice so tiny it barely existed, then added, just be gentle. I'm scared of pain. Having survived yesterday's disaster of inexperience, I was slightly less terrible this time. Linger clung to my sleeve the whole time and made sounds like a startled baby deer, which was both concerning and endearing. Outside, the nightly eavesdropping Olympics, round 2. Lu Mei was using Chun Tao as a human stress ball. The Lee sisters were having synchronized blushing competitions. And Shaoruoli? Still, reading, same page as an hour ago. Her ears were pink. The book was upside down. Okay, I made that last part up, but probably. Afterward, Linger curled up against me, sweaty and flushed, and her first words were, tomorrow I'll make you perilla fish porridge. This girl literally just had the most intimate moment of her life, and her brain immediately went back to cooking. I think I found my soulmate. System rewarded me with more stamina and an herb identification skill shared with Linger. Cool. But honestly, lying there with this warm little foodie asleep on my chest, I wasn't thinking about skill trees. I was thinking about how 2 days ago I had nothing, and now I had a family, a magic fishing net, and 2 wives who both expressed love primarily through feeding me. Life was getting weird. Life was getting good. And somewhere out in the main room, Shaoruoli turned another page in her book, finally, and thought about things she'd never tell anyone. At least, that's what the moonlight through the window seemed to suggest. But that's her chapter. Mine ended with fish porridge promises and a sleeping herb girl who snored just a tiny bit. Rooster crowed. System screamed. Daily intimacy quest. Wife number 3. Pick one. Also, fix your terrible house. At this point, I'm starting to think the system is just a really pushy matchmaker with construction hobbies. But hey, free magic axe and knife as rewards? I'll renovate and romance. I'm a multitasker now. I looked at my options. Shaoruoli? Too intimidating. The Lee sisters? 4 of them, and I can barely tell them apart yet. That leaves Lu Mei, the oldest one, the seamstress. Yesterday, she'd been quietly sewing my clothes back together with the focus of a brain surgeon. She had this calm, warm energy that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. Like a human cup of tea. Decision made. But first, house renovation. I stepped out and Lu Mei was already up, cooking, because of course she was. The woman operated on some kind of internal schedule that started before roosters. She saw me and dropped a piece of firewood on the floor, face going red. I saw you were sleeping well, So I started early. This woman was too wholesome. It was almost aggressive. Breakfast happened. Linger volunteered to fetch my nephew Squad. Chun Tao went vegetable picking. I grabbed my new system reward tools, an axe that glowed blue and weighed like it meant business, and a knife so sharp it probably cut things by being near them, and headed to recruit Wang Hu and his crew. Found the kids shooting slingshots at nothing. Who wants to chop bamboo? Lunch is wild boar meat. They nearly trampled each other saying yes. In the bamboo forest, I swung the magic axe at a thick bamboo stalk. One hit. Clean cut. Barely any sawdust. The bamboo basically apologized for being in my way. Wang Hu's jaw hit the ground. Uncle, that axe is a treasure. I let him try it. He cut through bamboo like butter and screamed with pure joy. Kids and overpowered tools. What could go wrong? 2 hours later, 20 bamboo poles and 10 pine logs, carried home by an army of very excited children. We were basically a tiny construction company powered by wild boar promises. Back at the house, everyone had a job. Xiao Ruoli and the Lee sisters cleared the yard. Lu Mei was mixing mud with straw for wall plaster. She'd found the recipe in my system's building manual somehow. Wait, no? SHE just knew how to do it. This woman had survival skills I hadn't even unlocked yet. I went full foreman mode. Wang Hu build scaffolding. Li Wan saw planks. Lu Mei and Chun Tao keep mixing mud. Everyone moved like a well-oiled machine. The magic tools made everything stupidly easy. Sawing logs felt like slicing tofu. Hammering nails took 1 tap each. Xiao Ruoli appeared from nowhere with old oil paper and sealed the roof holes. I didn't even ask her to. She just identified a structural weakness and fixed it. This woman was going to run a kingdom someday. I was sure of it. By noon, stomachs were rioting. Lu Mei had already set up an outdoor kitchen, wild boar stew and corn porridge for the whole crew. The kids inhaled food like vacuum cleaners. Wang Hu, mouth completely stuffed, declared, "Uncle, your house food is better than my mom's. Call us for anything." I'd accidentally created a child labor force motivated entirely by meat. Questionable ethics, excellent results. After lunch break, the big project, building a separate room on the east side of the house. Bamboo walls, wood plank floor, straw ceiling, blue cloth curtain for a door. Lu Mei added the curtain herself, and honestly, it looked nice. Almost cozy. I stepped inside to test it. Clapped my hands. Stomped my feet. Could barely hear the outside. Soundproofing. After 2 nights of the entire household listening to my romantic activities through a curtain that filtered approximately 0% of sound, this room was the greatest invention since fire. System confirmed. House durability up. Stamina recovery boosted. Beautiful. Evening. Auto fishing net delivered another mountain of fish. Lu Mei and Chun Tao split them, half for soup, half salted for drying. Linger organized her herb collection like a tiny pharmacist. Dinner was a feast. Fish stew, stir-fried boar, corn porridge, and Lu Mei's special wild vegetable dumplings. A week ago I was eating sand rice. Now I was having 4-course meals. Character development. After dinner, I went to set the fishing net. Came back. Lu Mei was washing dishes alone. I walked over to help. Tired? I asked. She nearly dropped a bowl. And no, her ears were crimson. She knew what was coming. I knew what was coming. The moon knew what was coming. Lu Mei, would you sleep in the new room with me tonight? Long silence. Then a tiny, then tears. Not sad tears. The kind that happen when someone who's been alone their whole life suddenly realizes they have a place to belong. She'd lost her parents young, been passed around like unwanted luggage, and never once had someone build her a room and ask her to share it. I took her hand. It was rough from years of needlework, warm and shaking. We went into the new room. Curtain dropped. Oil lamp lit. And for the first time, we had actual walls between us and the audience. Lu Mei was the shyest of the 3 so far. She cried a river, twisted her sleeves into knots, and looked at me like I might evaporate. I held her hands and said, "I'm here now. Nobody's going to hurt you again." That broke the dam. She melted into me like she'd been waiting her entire life to hear those words. 3rd time doing this, and I was finally not completely terrible at it. Progress. Lu Mei was different from the others. She didn't make little sounds like Linger or go silent like Chun Tao. She just bit her lip and occasionally let out these quiet, restrained cries that somehow hit harder than anything loud would have. The soundproofing worked. Mostly. The outer room crew could only hear vague noises instead of full audio drama. Massive upgrade. Chun Tao buried her face in Linger's shoulder. Linger, the little snoop, had her ear aimed at the curtain like a satellite dish. The Lee sisters were shoving each other and sneaking glances. And Xiao Ruoli was doing her nightly performance of woman pretending to read a book while thinking about everything except the book. Her fingernail was literally scratching the page. The candle flickered on her face, and I liked to imagine she was having thoughts. Afterward, Lu Mei curled up in my arms, still trembling a little. I rubbed her back and realized something. I didn't just build a room today. I built a promise. Every nail, every plank, every bamboo wall. It all meant, this is home now. System gave me a sewing skill and constitution points. Sure, whatever. The real reward was Lu Mei falling asleep against my chest, finally looking peaceful for the first time since I'd met her. 3 wives down. 5 to go. A new room with actual walls. An auto-fishing net. A child construction crew on retainer. And Xiao Ruoli out there, reading the same page for the 3rd night in a row, slowly realizing that maybe, just maybe, the skinny orphan boy was more than he appeared. Moonlight through bamboo cracks. Warm room. Sleeping seamstress. Not bad for day 3 of married life. System alarm clock. Day 4. Still no snooze button. Daily quest. Wife number 4. Also, go sell fish at the market. You know what? At this point I've accepted my life is just a dating simulator with a fishing minigame. Let's go. Today's pick. Li Wan, the eldest of the 4 Li sisters. She was the sensible one. Good at math, knew farming, didn't panic easily. Basically the project manager of the sister squad. If I was building a household, she was middle management material. But first, capitalism. The auto-fishing net had been printing fish like a money machine. We were catching way more than 9 people could eat, so the system said, go sell it, dummy. Fair point. I grabbed 2 mega buckets of fresh fish, borrowed the village chief's ox cart, bribed him with 2 big fish, which he pretended to reluctantly accept while grinning like a kid, and rolled out with Chun Tao driving and Li Wan riding shotgun. Li Wan sat in the back with me, nervously destroying her sleeve with her fingers. This girl ironed her own clothes with her anxiety. I tried small talk. Ever been to town? Once. With my parents. To sell grain. Long pause. Then, not again. Classic famine backstory. Everyone in my house had one. We were basically a support group that also cooked together. I told her I'd buy them all fabric for new clothes. Her head snapped up so fast I heard her neck crack. Really, her eyes were literally sparkling. She looked down at her patched-up sleeves, and I could see her mentally designing outfits already. At the market, I popped open the fish buckets, and it was like releasing a fragrance bomb. People swarmed us. My fish were huge, fresh, and beautiful, the Brad Pitts of river fish. An auntie rushed up. How much? I quoted the system's recommended prices, slightly below market rate for fast turnover. Business strategy courtesy of a robot in my brain. Li Wan transformed. Gone was the shy farm girl. In her place, a machine. She whipped out a scale, weighed fish with surgical precision, calculated prices in her head instantly, made change without hesitation. I just stood there pointing at fish like a game show host while she ran the entire operation. 1 hour. 2 full buckets. Gone. 300 copper coins earned. I handed her the money. She tucked it into her clothes against her body like it was a newborn baby. This woman would guard our finances with her life. I had found my CFO. Next stop, fabric shop. I bought 8 bolts of sturdy cloth in dark blue and gray for everyday wear, plus 2 nicer pieces, blue for Xiao Ruoli and pink for Linger. Li Wan watched me spend 200 coins and physically winced. That's dozens of pounds of rice. Can't farm in rags, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, nodded reluctantly. The accountant in her was screaming, but the woman who hadn't owned new clothes in years quietly won the argument. I also bought needles, thread, and cotton. Lu Mei was going to lose her mind with happiness. On the ride home, Li Wan actually talked. Like, full sentences, multiple in a row. Her parents were tenant farmers, lost their land in the famine, died. She dragged her 3 younger sisters through months of wandering until Xiao Ruoli took them under her wing. 4 sisters. Alone. Surviving on nothing. And Li Wan kept them all alive as a teenager. You won't have to run anymore, I told her. I meant it. Her eyes went red. One tiny, Maximum emotion delivered in minimum sound. The Li Wan way. Back at the village, I was greeted like a returning war hero. Linger literally bounced when she saw the pink fabric. For me, she held it against herself and spun around. Xiao Ruoli received the blue fabric with a quiet nod, but I caught the corner of her mouth twitch upward. Millimeter smile. From her, that was basically a standing ovation. Dinner was a celebration. Fish stew, or stir-fry, the works. The neighborhood kids showed up like they had food radar and ate until they couldn't move. Wang Hu declared he was now my permanent employee. I had accidentally started a small business empire fueled by magic fish and child enthusiasm. After dinner, fishing net deployed, dishes done, I found Li Wan sewing with Lu Mei. Sat down next to her. Li Wan. New room. Tonight, she stopped sewing. Face went red. But here's the thing about Li Wan. She didn't freeze up, didn't cry, didn't stammer. She put down the needle, folded the fabric neatly, and said, "Okay," like she was confirming a business appointment. This woman was built different. In the room, she poured me a cup of water, sat down, and said, "I swear, I know what to do. Don't be nervous. I'm the one being told not to be nervous." By my wife. On our wedding night. Role reversal complete. Li Wan was nothing like the others. Chun Tao was gentle. Linger was cute. Lu Mei was fragile. Li Wan was sturdy. Not physically, emotionally. She approached the whole situation like a task that needed doing, and she was going to do it well. She blushed, sure. Got nervous, yes. But underneath was this bedrock of, I've survived worse than this, and I'm not falling apart now. She didn't cry or make little sounds. She just bit her lip and breathed deep, quiet and steady, like someone plowing a field. You keep going until the row is done. Somehow that was the most attractive thing yet. The soundproof room continued to earn its construction cost. Outside, the nightly listening party had become almost routine. Linger whispered to Chun Tao, "Do you think Big Sister Wan is okay?" Chun Tao blushed and patted her back. Lu Mei tried to sew and produced the most crooked stitch line of her career. And Xiao Ruoli, the queen of pretending not to care, actually put down her book and stared at the curtain. Progress? Concern? Jealousy? Some emotion was happening behind those cool eyes, and I would have paid good money to know which one. Afterward, Li Wan didn't cuddle or cry. She just leaned against me, practical as ever, and said, "From now on, me and my sisters will handle all the housework. Everything will be organized perfectly." She just had the most intimate moment of her life and immediately pivoted to household management delegation. This woman was going to run my life, and I was going to let her. System gave me endurance boost and farm planning skills. Nice. But the real prize was having someone who could handle money, manage people, and still blush when I held her hand. For to go, I had a fish business, a renovation crew, a herb garden in progress, a sewing operation, a farming plan, and a CFO who guarded copper coins like a dragon guards gold. Moonlight. Warm room. Sleeping farm girl who'd already mentally scheduled tomorrow's chores. This family was becoming a whole operation. And I was starting to think the system didn't just give me wives, it gave me a startup team. Day 5. System alarm. You know the drill. Wife number 5. Also, go find a bigger lake because your little pond is running out of fish. Fair enough. I had been strip mining that poor river like a fish vacuum cleaner. Time to expand the operation. Today's wife pick, Li Lan, second of the 4 Li sisters. She was the chatty one, always bouncing around, always smiling, always pointing at random plants and telling you their medical properties. Like a nature documentary that won't stop talking. In a good way. Morning scene. Lu Mei cooking, Chun Tao chopping vegetables, Linger playing nurse because Xiao Ruoli caught a cold. That woman was reading books in a freezing shack for days. Of course she got sick. Linger made her ginger soup with the intensity of a battlefield medic. Xiao Ruoli, even while sniffling, had already organized Li Wan to bake travel biscuits for my trip. Sick and still running logistics. This woman managed people from her sickbed. Terrifying. Incredible. I packed the mega fishing net and headed out with Li Lan, Chun Tao, and Linger toward Li Family Village Reservoir, 10 miles away. Long walk. Li Lan made it feel like 5 because she would not stop talking. That's dandelion. It reduces swelling. That's wild rose. You can make tea. That's Li Lan. Do you know a plant that makes people quieter? She laughed and punched my arm. I deserved it. The reservoir was massive. Dozens of acres of open water, sparkling in the winter sun. Our village pond was a bathtub compared to this. The system activated, net auto expansion, and my fishing net grew to the size of a small house. I threw it in, waited about 15 minutes, and pulled it up. 100 pounds of fish. First pull. Linger screamed. Leland screamed. Chun Tao just stood there with her mouth open. Fish were flopping everywhere. Carp, crucian, grass fish, the whole aquatic cast. It was like the reservoir was trying to go out of business. I did it again. And again. 300 pounds total. We had so many fish the bamboo baskets were overflowing, and we were stuffing them into cloth bags. Our pile looked like a fish pyramid. I left Leland guarding Mount Fish and sprinted back to the village for reinforcements. Wang Hu and the boys heard 300 pounds of fish and nearly broke their legs running to get the ox cart. When they arrived at the reservoir and saw the pile, they went silent. Then Wang Hu whispered, "Uncle, did you empty the entire lake?" We loaded 2 full ox cart trips to haul everything back. Passing through Li family village, every single villager came out to gawk. That boy caught all of that. I felt like a celebrity. A very tired, fish-smelling celebrity. Back home, I kept enough fish to feed my army of wives and kids, then loaded the rest onto the cart and drove straight to town with Leland and Wang Hu. Destination, welcome guest restaurant, the biggest place in town. The owner was a shrewd fat man who looked at me like I was a fly buzzing around his door. Then he saw the fish. 300 pounds of fat, fresh, still alive fish. His expression did a complete 180 so fast, I thought his face would spin off. I hit him with the pitch. 200 pounds of fresh fish, delivered daily, 20% below market price. Long-term deal. His abacus was clicking before I finished the sentence. Deal. Show up at dawn every day. Cash on delivery. He wrote up a contract. Gave me 50 coins deposit. Just like that, I had a recurring revenue stream. I went from starving orphan to fish supplier mogul in less than a week. If the system had a stock market, I'd be trending. With the deposit money, I bought Leland a bolt of pink fabric. She held it against her chest, and her eyes went shiny with tears. Girl had never owned new cloth in her life. I also grabbed needles and thread for the others because Lu Mei went through sewing supplies like a machine gun goes through bullets. Home. Dinner. Announcement. We have a restaurant contract. The house erupted. Li Wan immediately started planning fish sorting schedules. Lu Mei calculated how much money we'd make per month. Linger was already seasoning tomorrow's dinner in her head. Xiao Ruoli, still sniffling, gave me a look that I can only describe as impressed but refusing to show it, her version of a standing ovation. After dinner, fishing net deployed, I found Leland fixing the net by lamplight. Sat next to her. New room. Tonight. She looked up. Eyes bright. That was the most enthusiastic I'd received so far. Zero hesitation. Leland energy. In the room, she didn't do the shy trembling thing. She started massaging my back. You ran so much today, you must be exhausted. This girl's love language was physical maintenance. I was not complaining. Her hands were warm and strong, not delicate like Chun Tao's, not rough like Lu Mei's, just solid and alive. Like everything about Leland, warm and full of energy. She was the easiest one so far. Not because it was casual, but because she was genuinely relaxed. She laughed. She teased me. She whispered, "Next time I'm coming fishing with you," like we were planning a date and not. You know, she was like a happy little sparrow, chirping away even in the most intimate moments, and somehow that made everything feel natural instead of awkward. Outside, the nightly show. Linger, my little intelligence agent, sidled up to Chun Tao and whispered, "Sister Lan has a pretty voice." Chun Tao smacked her. Lu Mei was sewing clothes for Xiao Ruoli and smiling to herself. The remaining Li sisters were probably having a silent group panic about being next. And Xiao Ruoli? She put her book down. Actually put it down. Stared at the curtain. And for the first time, something in her eyes shifted. I couldn't see it from inside, obviously, but I felt it, like a change in the weather. The mysterious noble woman who'd been watching me from a distance for 5 days was starting to feel something she couldn't file away in a book. Leland fell asleep against me, mumbling about tomorrow's fish delivery route. Even unconscious, she was planning logistics. The Lee sisters really were my operations department. System rewarded me with agility points and fish classification skills. My character sheet was starting to look like a fishing RPG, crossed with a dating simulator crossed with a small business management game. Not the life I imagined, but honestly, not bad. 5 wives, a restaurant contract, 300 pounds of fish per day, a renovation crew, an herb garden, a sewing workshop, a farming plan. I started with half a bowl of sandy rice. Moonlight through the window. Sleeping sparrow girl. Somewhere outside, Shower Oli was staring at a curtain and feeling things she wasn't ready to name. 5 down, 3 to go, and the biggest one was still waiting. Day 6. System doesn't believe in weekends. Wife number 6. Also, organize the village fishing operation and don't let anyone drown. I've gone from starving orphan to fish tycoon to community safety coordinator in less than a week. My resume is getting weird. Today's pick, Li Ju, thirdly sister. The quiet one. She moved through the house like a gentle breeze, barely made a sound, but somehow everything she touched got done perfectly. If Li Wan was the manager and Li Lan was the hype girl, Li Ju was the silent engine keeping everything running. She brought me a cup of hot water before I even asked. Her fingers trembled slightly. Her cheeks were pink. She knew the rotation by now. We all knew the rotation by now. The entire household was running on an unspoken schedule, and nobody acknowledged it out loud, because that would make it weird. Well, weird are. Then Wong, who showed up at breakfast with half the village behind him. Uncle, we want to fish at the reservoir too. Our families are starving. I wanted to say no because that lake was deep and dangerous. But then I saw their faces, hollow cheeks, desperate eyes, kids who were getting thinner by the day. I couldn't eat 300 pounds of fish daily while my neighbors starved. Fine. But rules. Nobody goes near deep water. Nobody swims. You do exactly what I say, or you go home. They agreed so fast their heads almost fell off. I brought Li Ju along specifically because the system gave me rescue raft blueprints, and she was the detail person. I handed her the plans and said, build these. She studied them for about 2 minutes, nodded once, recruited some village women, and started weaving bamboo rescue rafts with the calm efficiency of someone assembling furniture from instructions. No questions, no confusion, just results. Li Ju was an execution machine disguised as a quiet girl. Meanwhile, I ran the fishing operation like a drill sergeant. 200 pounds caught by noon with the village crew helping. Not as much as solo, but enough to feed everyone and fill the restaurant order. I sent Wang Hu home with the village's share, took the restaurant portion to town, delivered to welcome guest restaurant. The owner was grinning so wide his face might split, and then made a detour. Pastry shop. 2 boxes of osmanthus cake. 1 box of mung bean pastries. The system said, treat your wives, and for once the system and I were in complete agreement. Brought the sweets home at sunset. Handed them out. Linger shoved an entire osmanthus cake in her mouth, and her eyes went supernova. So sweet. This girl experienced dessert the way other people experience religion. Lume took tiny delicate bites, and looked like she might ascend to heaven. Xiaoruoli took 1 mung bean pastry, tasted it thoughtfully, and said, don't waste money on these, ma'am. You are eating that pastry with visible enjoyment. Your mouth says no, but your taste buds say yes. Then dinner happened, and Xiaoruoli did something unexpected. She took charge. She stood up, cleared her throat, and basically reorganized our entire household like a CEO, presenting quarterly strategy, Lu Mei, sewing and clothes. Chun Tao, cooking and housework. Linger, medicine and health. The Li sisters, farming when spring comes. I'll handle finances and planning with Chen Xian. Everyone stared. Then everyone nodded. Lu Mei said, Ruoli thinks of everything. She should be our big sister. Linger clapped. Li Wan agreed. I agreed. Xiao Ruoli's ears turned pink. Just the ears. Face, perfectly composed. Ears, screaming. This woman had just casually organized 8 people into a functional household hierarchy while pretending it was a casual dinner suggestion. She'd been waiting for this moment. She probably had the org chart planned since day 1. I said, with you managing things, I can relax. She looked away and made a tiny, sound. From Xiao Ruoli, that was basically a love confession. Evening. Fishing net deployed. Found Li Ju washing dishes. The moment had arrived. Li Ju. New room. Tonight. She almost dropped a bowl into another dimension. Tiny voice. Okay. In the room, Li Ju stood perfectly still like a flower that hadn't bloomed yet. No fidgeting, no crying, no chatter. Just waiting. calm and quiet on the surface, but I could feel her hand shaking when I held it. Don't be nervous. She looked up with wet eyes. I'm not scared. She leaned into me like a feather falling. Slowly, gently. She smelled like fresh grass. Everything about Li Ju was soft and unhurried. She moved like the world had a dimmer switch, and she turned it all the way down. She didn't cry like Lu Mei or chatter like Li Lan. She just breathed quietly, wrapped her arms around me, and held on like I was warm and she'd been cold her whole life. Occasionally a small sound escaped, barely a whisper, and somehow that was more devastating than anything loud could have been. Outside, Linger, my household intelligence agent, whispered to Chun Tao, Sister Ju is so gentle. Chun Tao softly smacked her, the nightly ritual. Lu Mei sewed with a little smile. The remaining Li sister, just Li Mei now, last one standing, was probably having an existential countdown situation. And Xiaoruoli? She was holding her book, staring past it, not at the curtain this time, at something further away, something inside herself. The woman who'd just organized the entire household was realizing she'd organized everyone's place in this family except her own. Li Ju fell asleep in my arms and mumbled, I'll work hard so you don't have to. 6 wives. Each one different. Each one found a way into this strange little family. The seamstress, the cook, the herbalist, the manager, the chatterbox, the quiet one. And somewhere in the outer room, the mystery woman with the book was running out of pages to hide behind. System gave me charisma points and a cooking skill. My stat sheet now included strength of 3 men, fishing mastery, farming knowledge, sewing, herb identification, fish classification, cooking, and charisma. I was becoming a well-rounded character. In a game I never asked to play. In a life I never expected to love. Moonlight. Grass-scented girl. Sleeping house full of people who used to have nothing. 6 down. 2 to go. And the hardest ones were still ahead. Day 7. 1 week of marriage. 7 system alarms. 0 days off. Wife number 7. Also, learn to make braised fish and start a street food business. The system wasn't just a matchmaker anymore. It was a matchmaker and a business incubator. Next, it'd probably tell me to file taxes. Today's target, Li Mei, the lastly sister. The baby of the group. She looked quiet and shy, but her hands moved at terrifying speed. Yesterday, she outwove everyone building rescue rafts. She was the stealth weapon of the Li family. Silent, but deadly. At crafts. Morning scene. I walked out, and Li Mei was carrying a water basin. Our eyes met. She flinched so hard the water almost became a tsunami. Her ears went nuclear red. She knew she was next. The entire house knew she was next. At this point, the nightly rotation had the predictability of a TV schedule, and everyone was just quietly waiting for their episode. Headed to the reservoir with Li Mei, Wang Hu, and the village crew. But when we arrived, 20 more villagers were already there waiting. Word had spread. My fishing operation had gone viral by ancient standards. Let us fish too. We'll follow every rule. I couldn't say no. These people were starving. So I lined them up, repeated the safety rules for the 100th time, and ran the biggest fishing operation this reservoir had ever seen. 800 pounds. In one morning. The village crew was euphoric. 20 pounds per family, rest sold to me. Wang, who was already doing inventory like a tiny warehouse manager. This kid was going to be a business mogul someday. Then drama. Some guys from Li family village showed up looking angry. This is our reservoir. Who said you could fish here? I walked over with my best. Let's be friends, smile, and 2 fat fish. Big brother, no disrespect. We're just hungry folks trying to survive. How about we share some fish every time we come? He looked at the fish. Looked at me. Looked at the fish again. Took the fish. Fine. Don't make a mess. Diplomacy. Solved with bribery. Works every time. Back home. 200 pounds went to the restaurant. 300 pounds reserved for tonight's big project. Braised spiced fish. The system dropped a recipe, star anise, cinnamon bark, bay leaves, Sichuan pepper, rock sugar, plus some mystery herbs from Linger's collection. I set up a massive iron barrel, loaded it with cleaned fish and braising liquid, and let it simmer on low heat. Li Mei crouched beside me, feeding the fire, stirring when I told her, watching the whole process with her big, curious eyes. She was absorbing information like a sponge. Also, she had an abacus, and when I asked her to tally the fish purchases, she clicked through calculations so fast it sounded like a tiny machine gun. You're better than a professional accountant. I told her. She turned red. My dad taught me a little. A little? She was doing mental math faster than the system could calculate. I had accidentally married a human calculator. The braised fish smell hit the neighborhood about an hour in. It traveled so far that Wang Hu and his crew appeared on top of my wall like meerkats, sniffing the air with desperate faces. Linger chased them away while laughing. Dinner, we taste-tested the braised fish alongside boar meat and corn porridge. The table went silent. Then Lu Mei said what everyone was thinking. This is better than the braised meat. Shop in town, Xiao Ruoli, ever the businesswoman, tasted one piece, nodded, and immediately said, price at 50% above fresh fish. She didn't even look up from her mental calculations. This woman was a born CFO. She and Li Mei were going to turn my fish operation into a corporation. Night. Everyone full. Braised fish still bubbling in the iron barrel, filling the house with the most incredible smell. I found Li Mei and asked her to come to the new room. She grabbed her sleeves so hard her knuckles went white. Then she looked up with those bright, stubborn eyes and said, my sisters all said, life with you will keep getting better. That hit different. All four Li sisters, girls who'd lost everything, wandered for months, nearly died, had talked among themselves and agreed that this weird skinny boy with the magic fishing net was someone worth trusting. That wasn't just acceptance. That was hope. I pulled her close. She was light as a feather, stiff at first, then slowly melting against me. Li Mei had this farm girl toughness. She wouldn't cry, wouldn't make noise, just bit her lip and held on. But occasionally she'd let out this tiny, barely their breath against my ear that was somehow more devastating than anything dramatic could have been. Like a kitten scratching your heart with one claw. Outside, Chun Tao whispered to Ling, Mei seems so quiet but, and then blushed too hard to finish. Lu Mei was sewing with a crooked smile. The other three Li sisters huddled together with eyes full of something. Nostalgia? Anticipation? They'd all been through this now. All four of them. And they were quietly bonding over the shared experience in a way that made them closer than ever. And Xiao Ruoli, the last one, the only one who hadn't been to the new room. She sat there tracing her finger across a book page without reading a single word. The candlelight flickered on her face, and for the first time, I think she wasn't just observing the household anymore. She was feeling left out of it. Li Mei fell asleep against me and mumbled, I'll go with you tomorrow to sell braised fish. I calculate fast. 7 wives. 7 nights. 7 different personalities, 7 different ways of being close. The cook, the herbalist, the seamstress, the manager, the sparrow, the orchid, the calculator. One left. The braised fish bubbled in the barrel outside, filling the cold winter air with warmth and spice. Inside, Li Mei breathed softly against my chest. Outside, somewhere in the flickering candlelight, Xiao Ruoli was turning a page she hadn't read, waiting for something she wouldn't admit she wanted. System gave me constitution points and braised fish preservation skills. Cool. But the real reward was knowing that tomorrow, for the first time, I'd have to face the one woman in this house I still couldn't figure out. 7 down. 1 to go. And she was the one who scared me most. Day 8. System woke me up and dropped a bomb. Special quest. 2 wives tonight. I stared at the ceiling for a solid minute. My brain needed a full reboot. The system had gone from get married to build a harem schedule to now apparently buy one get one free night. I was 16 years old and my life had become something I couldn't describe to anyone without getting slapped. But first, business. 5 giant barrels of braised fish loaded onto the ox cart. Headed to town with Chun Tao and Linger, who were both suspiciously quiet and kept stealing glances at me, then looking away like I was the sun and they'd go blind. They knew. Women always know. At the market, I popped the barrel lids and unleashed a smell so powerful it basically assaulted the entire street. People gathered, but nobody bought. The fish looked dark and unfamiliar, and 15 coins per pound wasn't cheap. Everyone just stood there judging. It's all black and weird looking. That's expensive for fish. I was starting to sweat when an old man with a white beard hobbled up, sniffed the barrel, and his eyes went wide. Wonderful aroma. I can smell bay leaf and clove. Give me 2. He paid, bit into one right there on the street, and basically became my marketing department. Tender. Flavorful. Boy, will you be here tomorrow? That's all it took. One credible old man eating fish in public, and suddenly everyone wanted some. Give me one. 2 pounds here. A woman bought one. Came back 5 minutes later. My kid won't stop eating it. Give me 2 more. 5 barrels. Sold in under an hour. The braised fish was a hit. I bought 2 bags of rice at the grain shop, then hit the accessories market and bought 8 scented sachets. One for each wife, personalized. Peach blossoms for Chun Tao. Butterflies for Linger. Orchids for Lu Mei. Elegant plum branches for Xiao Ruoli. I was getting good at this husband thing. On the way home, Chun Tao secretly pressed a handmade sachet into my palm, embroidered with a little fish, stitches perfect. She'd stayed up late making it for me. Then Linger, not to be outdone, pulled out homemade Perilla candy from her pocket. I made this for you. These two were in a quiet, gift-giving arms race, and I was the happiest battlefield. Delivered braised fish to welcome guest restaurant. The owner tasted it and nearly proposed to me. 50 pounds a day? Every day? Also, want to sell me the recipe? 50 silver taels. 50 taels was a fortune. But I smiled and said, family secret. Can't sell it. His face fell so hard it practically hit the floor. Sorry, buddy. Trade secrets. Then everything went sideways. Passing through Lee family village, that tall guy from yesterday blocked the road with 15 armed villagers carrying sticks. You're making big money from our reservoir. Pay up. Teach us your fishing tricks, or give us 30 pounds for every 100 you catch. We had a deal. A few fish isn't a deal, he sneered. Then his goons grabbed half a barrel of braised fish and both bags of rice off my cart. I stood there with my fists clenched so hard my nails drew blood. But it was 15 against 1. Math doesn't lie. I looked him in the eye and said, this isn't over, he laughed. I didn't. Home. Everyone saw my face and knew something happened. When I explained, Linger raised her tiny fist like she was ready to march to war. Let's go fight them. Xiao Ruoli grabbed her arm. Don't be stupid. They outnumber us. We stabilize the braised fish business first, then deal with them properly. Cold. Calculated. Correct. This woman thought in strategy while everyone else thought in emotions. I nodded. Ruoli's right. We rest tonight, plan tomorrow. Dinner was quieter than usual. The braised fish tasted slightly bitter, knowing half a barrel was sitting in some bully's kitchen. But Chun Tao and Linger kept sneaking food onto my plate from both sides like a two-pronged comfort operation. After dinner, deep breath. Time for the special quest. I brought both Chun Tao and Linger to the new room. Closed the door. 3 people. 1 small room. Silence, so thick you could bite it. Chun Tao's face was so red, she looked like she might actually combust. Linger's eyes were huge and sparkling with what I can only describe as terrified curiosity, like a kitten approaching a cucumber. Relax, I said, taking Chun Tao's freezing hand in one of mine and patting Linger's head with the other. 2 different perfumes hit me simultaneously, Chun Tao's peach blossom scent and Linger's herbal smell, and together they were honestly intoxicating. Chun Tao leaned in first, gentle as always, arms around my waist. Linger hesitated, then grabbed my arm and pressed against my side. 2 warm bodies, 2 racing heartbeats, one very overwhelmed 16-year-old trying to act like he had any idea what he was doing. Chun Tao was her usual soft self, quiet breaths, tender and yielding. Linger, though, second time around, and she'd leveled up. That tickles, she'd whisper, or she'd burrow into my chest uninvited. The shy herb girl was evolving into a bold herb girl, and I was not prepared. They started out awkward and separate, then gradually gravitated toward each other and me, until we were basically a warm, tangled pile of limbs and heartbeats. Like 2 cats who both wanted the same lap and decided to share instead of fight. Outside, pandemonium. Silent pandemonium, but still. Lu Mei buried her face in Li Wan's shoulder. Li Wan's hands were shaking. The 3 remaining Li sisters were pressed together in a huddle of synchronized blushing. Li Lan whispered, will it be our turn tomorrow? Nobody answered, but everyone was thinking it. And Xiao Ruoli, last woman standing, the final unconquered fortress, sat with her book, page unturned, candle flickering across features that betrayed nothing except slightly pink ears. She sighed. One small, quiet sigh. The first crack in the wall. Afterward, Chun Tao and Linger lay on either side of me like bookends. Chun Tao had tear tracks and a peaceful face. Linger had a grin and asked, can we do this again? This girl had 0 shame recovery time. Incredible. System rewarded me with a full household health boost and a duo synergy skill. My skill tree was getting increasingly inappropriate to discuss in polite company. But lying there between two sleeping girls, moonlight striping through bamboo walls, braised fish smell still hanging in the air, I wasn't thinking about skills or stats. I was thinking about the rice those bullies stole, about Xiaoruoli's sigh, about tomorrow's fish delivery, about spring planting, about building something real. 7 wives down, one remaining. The hardest one. The one who sighed alone by candlelight while everyone else found their place. Soon, Ruoli. Soon. Morning. System notification. I read it. Closed my eyes. Open them. Read it again. Quest. Deep kissing. Explore new intimacy techniques. Help your wife fully relax. Reward. Fertility boost aura, mind connection skill. The system was now giving me romance tutorials. My life had become an instruction manual for things no 16-year-old should be getting graded on. What's next? A performance review. Star ratings? Today's partner, Lu Mei, round 2. The system wanted me to help her let go of her shyness. Fair enough. She'd been the most nervous one every time, always holding back. Time to fix that, I guess. With kissing. Prescribed by a robot. Normal Tuesday. I whispered in her ear at breakfast. Tonight. I'll be waiting for you. She froze, turned pink, whispered, and then walked into the kitchen like her legs had forgotten how knees worked. Mission, fluster Lu Mei. Status, devastating success. But first, business empire expansion. Took 8 barrels of braised fish to town. The old man from yesterday showed up with his entire neighborhood. My wife says your fish is better than the braised meat shop. Give me 10, the line wrapped around the street. People were dipping bread into the leftover sauce at the bottom of the barrels. We sold out in under an hour. Every single barrel, even the juice. The braised fish was officially a phenomenon. I was the Colonel Sanders of ancient China, and my secret recipe was worth more than gold. The restaurant owner had already begged to buy it. 50 silver taels. I said no. Some things you don't sell. Linger bought sugar-coated fruit skewers and ran to me with sunshine in her smile. This girl's happiness was powered by snacks, and nothing could convince me otherwise. Then, water reservoir drama. Arrived at the reservoir to find 100 villagers from Li family village waiting with nets. The tall bully from before was suddenly my best friend. Brother Chen Xian. Teach us today. I organized everyone. Shallow east side for them. Deep west side for us. Nobody crosses the line. Started demonstrating net technique. Everything was going fine until, splash. A teenager fell into the deep zone. Couldn't swim. Thrashing. Sinking. His father was screaming on the bank. People threw sticks and poles, but couldn't reach him. I didn't think. Threw off my jacket and dove in. The water was so cold it felt like being stabbed by 1,000 needles simultaneously. But the system emergency unlocked a swimming mastery, skill, and suddenly I was cutting through water like a dolphin. Grabbed the kid by his collar, dragged him back. People on shore threw ropes. We got hauled out. The kid coughed up half the reservoir. His father dropped to his knees and started slamming his forehead into the ground. Savior, our village owes you. Every single Li family villager surrounded me. The same people who robbed me yesterday were now crying and thanking me. The tall bully, red-eyed, voice cracking, grabbed my hands and said, Brother, this reservoir is yours. We're at a contract. 2,000 pounds of fish per year as lease fee. They got the village chief, the local official, wrote it up, stamped it with thumbprints. Official. Legally binding. I now had exclusive fishing rights to the biggest body of water in the region. Yesterday they stole my rice. Today they gave me a lake. Life is wild. I set up Uncle Fu with 2 guard dogs to watch the reservoir, and had Wang Hu build bamboo safety fences around the dangerous spots. No more kids going swimming involuntarily. Dragged myself home at sunset, exhausted, freezing, and smelling like lake water. Lu Mei had hot water ready and ginger soup. Her fingers touched mine when she handed me the bowl, and we both pretended that tiny electric shock didn't happen. It absolutely did. Dinner was warm and loud. Linger talked about candy. Chun Tao piled my bowl with meat until it was basically a meat tower. Xiaoruoli sipped soup quietly and gave me a look that said, I'm impressed, but I'll die before admitting it. Standard Rolly behavior. Night. New room. Lu Mei. I pulled her inside, closed the door, and before she could start her usual nervous stammering, I kissed her. Not the awkward, bumbling stuff from before. A real kiss. The system had basically downloaded a romance manual into my brain, and for once I wasn't going to complain about its intrusive life coaching. Lume went rigid. Then her eyelashes fluttered. Then she melted. Her hands found my waist, hesitant at first, then holding tight. I went slow, light kiss, deeper kiss, until she was breathless and had to pull back, chest heaving, eyes glazed. "Don't be scared," I whispered against her cheek. She nodded and, get this, kissed my chin. Voluntarily. Without prompting. The shyest woman in my house just made a move. Character development. This night was completely different from our first time. Lume stopped holding back. She made sounds she'd never made before, grabbed my shoulders when things got intense, and generally transformed from nervous bird to woman who finally trusts someone enough to let go. The system's kissing tutorial apparently worked because by the end she was basically liquid, draped across me with the most peaceful expression I'd ever seen on her face. Eyes still shimmery. Smiling. Actually smiling. Outside, Chun Tao whispered to Linger, "Sister May sounds different tonight." Linger nodded with enormous curious eyes. The Lee sisters were in their usual cluster of anticipation, and Xiao Ruoli's finger traced her book page back and forth, reading nothing, feeling everything she wouldn't say. System gave me the fertility aura and a mind connection skill. My character was now spec'd into fishing, combat, cooking, sewing, farming, herbalism, business management, swimming, and romance. I was the most overpowered peasant in the history of this dynasty. But lying there with Lume sleeping against me, truly relaxed for the first time ever, I wasn't thinking about stats. I was thinking about the kid I pulled from the lake. The contract in my pocket. The guard dogs watching my reservoir. The braised fish empire. The 7 women who trusted me. And the 8th one, sitting outside, running her finger across an unread page, who still hadn't let anyone past her walls. One to go. The biggest wall of all. Moonlight. Lake water still in my hair. Sleeping seamstress who finally learned how to let go. Tomorrow, maybe. Or the day after. But soon, Xiao Ruoli would stop reading that book and start writing a new chapter. With me. Another day, another system wake-up call that made me question my entire existence. Build a guard shack at the reservoir, construct lift nets, and also kiss your wife a lot. For fertility reasons, the system had fully embraced its dual identity as construction foreman and romance coach. I was basically being project managed into both infrastructure and fatherhood simultaneously. Today's plan, split the team. Chun Tao, Linger, Li Wan, and Li Long got promoted to independent sales division. I loaded them onto the ox cart with 8 barrels of braised fish and sent them to town alone for the first time. Linger saluted me with a rice ball in her mouth. "Don't worry, we'll sell everything." Watching 4 women I'd married less than 2 weeks ago drive off to run my business without me. Honestly, proud dad moment. Proud husband moment. Proud CEO moment. All the proud moments. Now, construction montage. Grabbed Wang Hu and the village crew, headed to the reservoir. System blueprints for a guard shack. Pine frame, thatched roof, mud walls. Simple but solid. I had the engineering skill now, so my axe work was surgical, mortise and tenon joints so tight you couldn't slide paper between them. The villagers watched me work like I was performing magic. Wang Hu's crew chopped trees, the Lee sisters mixed mud, and by noon we had a finished cabin. Uncle Fu touched the doorframe and grinned, so wide his face almost cracked. No more freezing on night watch. I also had them plant wooden stakes around the deep zones, string rope barriers, and hang deep water danger signs. Safety infrastructure, done. No more kids taking unplanned swimming lessons. Then, the lift net. This was the game changer. Picture a giant X made of 2-meter bamboo poles, with fine mesh stretched between the 4 arms, connected to a center beam with a long pull rope. You sink it, wait, then yank it up. It's basically a fish elevator. We built 2 of these monsters. System-enhanced tools made it stupidly fast. By late afternoon, both nets were ready. Wang Hu couldn't contain himself, grabbed one and sprinted to the water. First pull, 300 pounds of fish in one haul. The villagers lost their collective minds. 10 times faster than throwing nets. People were cheering, jumping, hugging each other. I'd just industrialized fishing. The agricultural revolution started here at my muddy reservoir with bamboo sticks. I announced the new employment program. Help me feed fish, catch fish, deliver fish, 20 copper coins per day plus lunch. Every single villager signed up before I finished the sentence. Wang, who nearly dislocated his shoulder volunteering. I now had employees, with wages, and a lunch program. I was running a company. Then my sales team came home and ruined the celebration. Chun Tao's eyes were red. Chun Xian, Zhang Ba in town, says we have to give him our braised fish recipe or he won't let us sell anymore. Zhang Ba, the town bully, had a relative who was a police captain, so he stomped around like he owned the place. Classic small-town mafia nonsense. The girls looked scared. I smiled and piled meat into their bowls. Don't worry about it. I'll handle him tomorrow. I said it calmly. Inside, I was already planning. Nobody threatens my wives and my fish empire. Nobody. Dinner was extra generous. Lu Mei's best stew, plenty of meat, warm atmosphere. The four saleswomen slowly relaxed. The table got loud again. Li Lan told a funny story about a customer who ate 7 pieces of braised fish standing at the stall. Linger did an impression of the old man demanding 10 fish. Normal family dinner. Exactly what everyone needed. Night. Linger's turn again. New room. Door closed. I tilted her chin up and kissed her. She giggled at first, because she's Linger and everything starts with a giggle, but then she went quiet. Her arms circled my neck. She kissed back, clumsy and eager, like someone learning a new skill and giving it 110%. The system wanted full exploration, so I obliged. Kissed her lips, her ear, her jaw, trailed down her neck. Linger's giggling was long gone, replaced by breathing that got faster and faster, and eyes that got wider and wider, and a body that slowly went from tense to completely boneless. Chen Xian, she whispered, then surprised me by kissing him my chest. Unprompted, my shy little herb girl had become a tiny confident creature who bit my shoulder when she got excited and whispered things in my ear that made my brain short-circuit. The room was full of her voice, sweet, unrestrained, mixing with cricket sounds from outside like nature's own soundtrack. Linger had fully evolved. From nervous deer to still a deer, but one that had decided it liked the hunter actually. Outside, Chun Tao had a blanket over her face, but was peeking through her fingers like watching a scary movie she couldn't look away from. Lu Mei's sewing was so crooked it looked like a seismograph reading. The Li sisters were a 4-person blushing championship. And Xiao Ruoli put her book down completely. Didn't even pretend anymore. Just stared at the curtain with an expression that was no longer curious or analytical, but something deeper. Something that looked a lot like wanting. Afterward, Linger was draped over me like a warm, damp noodle. Hair stuck to her cheeks, eyes glowing, completely spent but completely happy. My little herb girl had discovered an entirely new category of herbs tonight, metaphorically speaking. System confirmed. Construction and intimacy tasks complete. Guard shack built. Lift nets operational. Reservoir secured. Linger thoroughly connected with. My to-do list for tomorrow. Deal with Zhang Ba the town bully. Protect my fish empire. Continue building the greatest household in the history of the dynasty. But tonight, holding Linger while she mumbled something about making me herbal tea tomorrow, listening to the crickets and the quiet breathing of 7 women in the next room. 6 of them wondering when their next night would come, one of them wondering why she was wondering at all. I felt something I hadn't felt since my parents died. Home. This broken-down shack with its bamboo walls and straw roof and too many people inside. It was home. And I'd fight Zhang Ba and 100 Zhang Bas to keep it. System woke me up with what I can only describe as its most ambitious quest yet. Tonight, 3 wives. Simultaneously. For family bonding. I lay there staring at the ceiling made of straw and asked myself at what exact point my life became this. 2 weeks ago, I was debating whether to eat sand rice or just skip dinner entirely. Now a robot in my skull was scheduling me for a triple date. The character arc was insane. But that was tonight's problem. Morning's problem. Zhang Ba, town bully, needed to learn a lesson. Loaded 8 barrels of braised fish. Rolled to town with Chun Tao, Linger, Li Wan, and Li Mei. Linger was clenching her tiny fists like a boxer at weigh-in. If he shows up, I'll poison him with herbs. Everyone laughed, but honestly, she probably could. That girl knew plants that could ruin your entire week. We set up the stall. Opened the barrels. Customers started gathering. Then Zhang Ba arrived with 5 thugs carrying wooden clubs, stomping through the crowd like he owned the zip code. He slammed his stick on the ground. Everybody out. This stall is mine now. The crowd scattered. My 4 wives retreated behind the cart. Zhang Ba kicked at my fish barrel and screamed, "Give me the recipe, or I smash everything." I looked at him, smiled. "Recipes for sale. 10,000 silver taels. Not a coin less." His face turned purple. "You." He threw a punch. I dodged sideways, felt like slow motion with the system's energy boost, and clocked him square in the nose. Crack. Blood everywhere. His own blood, to be clear. Very satisfying. His 5 goons rushed me. I dropped them in about 4 seconds. 3 punches, 2 kicks, 5 grown men on the ground groaning. The system's energized state had turned me into a one-man army. I was operating at a level where these guys might as well have been attacking me with pool noodles. The crowd went wild. Finally, someone beat that bully. We'll all testify. Hit him again. I didn't, but I appreciated the enthusiasm. Police arrived. I pointed at Zhang Ba bleeding on the ground and said, very politely, "Officer, this man attacked my business. Please take him away." The officers knew me. I was the fish guy who'd been feeding half the town. They listened to 20 witnesses confirm Zhang Ba started it, then escorted us both to the county magistrate. The magistrate was a white-bearded old man who, no joke, opened with, "Oh, you're the braised fish boy. My wife won't stop talking about your fish." I explained the situation. He slammed his gavel. "Zhang Ba, 20 strikes for bullying. Chen Xian, continue your business. Pay your taxes. You have my full support." Judicial victory. I walked out of that courthouse with official government backing for my fish empire. Zhang Ba walked out. Well, he didn't walk out. He was carried out. 20 strikes will do that to you. My sales team had sold all 8 barrels while I was in court. Chun Tao was hugging the money bag like a teddy bear. The magistrate praised you. Linger was vibrating with pride. Home. Immediate expansion announcement. Hiring 20 women for fish processing, killing, cleaning, braising. 15 coins per day. Wang Hu. You and 2 guys handle daily delivery and sales. 20 coins per day. The village erupted. People were volunteering before I finished talking. I now had a workforce of 20 plus, a restaurant contract, a street stall operation, government protection, and a reservoir lease. My fish business had gone from guy with a net to regional seafood corporation in less than 2 weeks. Dinner was a party. 3 big tables in the yard. New employees, village helpers, my wives, everyone eating braised fish and drinking rice wine. Linger raised her cup. Chun Xian is like a hero from a storybook. I almost choked on my wine. 2 weeks ago, I was the village charity case. Now I was a folk hero who punched bullies and employed half the village. Night fell. Deep breath. The big quest. I led Chun Tao, Linger, and Li Mei into the new room. Closed the door. 3 women. 1 room. 1 extremely overwhelmed fish tycoon. Ling didn't even wait. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed my chin immediately. Bold. This girl had 0 warm-up time anymore. Chun Tao blushed and leaned against my left side. Li Mei, practical as always, just walked right up and tucked herself against me. I held all 3, kissed Chun Tao's forehead, pinched Linger's cheek, took Li Mei's hand. 3 different perfumes, 3 different heartbeats, 3 different flavors of nervousness. What followed was, look, imagine 3 completely different musical instruments trying to play together for the first time. Chun Tao was a gentle flute, soft, shy, melodic. Linger was a playful little drum, energetic, unpredictable, occasionally biting my shoulder like a snack. Li Mei was steady strings, quiet, precise, efficient even in this context. Somehow, the 3 of them found a rhythm. Chun Tao on my left, gentle as always. Linger on my right, being Linger, which meant enthusiastic commentary and 0 filter. Li Mei finding her place with the practical confidence of someone who approaches everything in life as a task to be done well. The room became a small symphony of whispered voices and quickened breathing. 3 different women, 3 different ways of being close, all happening at once. My brain was running at approximately 400% capacity. Outside, Lu Mei and the Li sisters had blankets over their heads, supposedly sleeping. Not sleeping. Xiao Ruoli's fingernail was scratching actual grooves into her book page. The candle flickered across her face, and for the first time, the emotion there wasn't curiosity or analysis or even longing. It was something that looked a lot like a decision being made. Eventually, silence. For people breathing hard. Chun Tao on my left shoulder, tears and smile. Linger on my right, grinning, already asking, when's next time? Li Mei curled at my feet, flushed and satisfied, probably mentally calculating tomorrow's fish inventory. 3 flowers blooming in moonlight. That's what they looked like. System gave me a 24-hour energy buff and family luck points. At this rate, my stat page needed its own table of contents. But the real victory today wasn't the quest or the stats. It was punching Zhang Ba in his stupid face, getting the magistrate's blessing, expanding the business, hiring the village, and coming home to a family that was growing stronger every single day. Tomorrow I'd wake up and do it again. More fish, more business, more building. And somewhere in the background, Xiao Ruoli would keep scratching her book, getting closer and closer to the night she'd finally close it for good and walk through that curtain herself. Moonlight. 3 sleeping women. A scratched book page in the next room. The final chapter of my marriage saga was coming, and I had a feeling it would be worth the wait. 2 months had passed. 2 months. And my life was unrecognizable. Let me catch you up. The fish business was booming. The braised fish was basically currency at this point. All 8 wives had specific jobs and ran the household like a military operation, and I'd gone from that starving orphan kid to that guy who employs half the village. Character development speedrun, world record. Then the system dropped the nuclear bomb. Quest: open a restaurant in town within 1 month. Menu: iron pot fish stew, iron pot braised goose, braised fish, braised beef, beef offal hot pot, oil braised shrimp, garlic shrimp, rice wine, and aged liquor. I sat up so fast I woke Lu Mei. What happened? Nothing. Go back to sleep, I said, while my brain was doing backflips. A restaurant. A full restaurant. With 9 menu items. I was a 16-year-old fish farmer, and the system wanted me to become Gordon Ramsay. But you know what? After everything I'd survived, starvation, blizzards, wild boar combat, town bullies, reservoir diplomacy, and managing 8 wives, opening a restaurant felt almost reasonable. I lay there and planned the entire operation in my head like a general preparing for war. Xiao Ruoli. Find and rent the shop. She was the smartest person I knew and could negotiate a shark into paying retail. Perfect for real estate. Chun Tao. Source geese from nearby farms. She went to town regularly and had that sweet face that made vendors give her good deals. Wang Hu and Li Lan. Find wild cattle herds in the mountains. Wang Hu knew every trail. Li Lan knew every plant. Scout team assembled. Li Wan and sisters. Build shrimp traps from the system blueprints. These girls could weave bamboo into anything. Linger and Lu Mei. Develop the rice wine and aged liquor recipes. Herb expert plus flavor expert equals booze dream team. Li Mei. Recruit 20 workers from the village. She had the abacus and the organizational skills. Uncle Fu and Wang Hu's dad. Build a processing workshop. Both carpenters. Give them wood, and they'd build me a factory. 7 tasks. 7 teams. All deployed simultaneously. I was running a startup launch, and I hadn't even gotten out of bed yet. At breakfast, I announced the plan. The room went dead silent for 3 seconds. Then it exploded. I'll find the shop. Xiao Ruoli, the woman who'd spent weeks pretending to calmly read books, practically leaped out of her chair. Her eyes were blazing. She'd been waiting for a real challenge, and I'd just handed her one. Geese. I'll get geese. Chun Tao raised her hand like an eager student. Wang Hu materialized from thin air. I swear this kid had teleportation abilities. Wild cattle? I'm in. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. My wives were vibrating with excitement. The village kids were already planning their roles. Uncle Fu was mentally measuring lumber. The entire village had become my startup incubator. What followed was the most productive month of human history. Xiao Ruoli found a prime street-facing shop in town in 3 days. Good location, fair rent, negotiated down by 20% because of course she did. This woman could sell ice to penguins. Chun Tao locked down a long-term goose supply contract with a neighboring village farmer. She came home beaming, and I realized my shy little wife had become a procurement specialist. Wang Hu and Li Lan found wild cattle and drew a map. Li Lan identified 17 edible plants along the route because she couldn't help herself. The Li sisters' shrimp traps worked perfectly on first test. These girls were engineering prodigies disguised as farm daughters. Linger and Lu Mei's rice wine came out of the first batch smelling so good that Uncle Fu, accidentally, drank 3 cups during quality testing and had to be carried home. Li Mei recruited 20 village women, each one vetted for speed and reliability. She ran the hiring process like a corporate HR department with an abacus. The workshop went up in a week. Professional-grade fish processing, meat prep, and brewing station. My village had industrialized. Everything was coming together. The restaurant was almost ready. I looked at my operation and couldn't believe it. Commercial kitchen, supply chains, employees, inventory management, brewing facility, fishing fleet, delivery logistics. I was 16. That evening, I watched Chun Tao, Linger, Li Lan, and Li Mei collapse from exhaustion after another marathon day of preparations. They'd been working nonstop, all of them. No complaints, no shortcuts, just pure dedication to making this family succeed. The system hadn't even issued an intimacy quest. But looking at these 4 women who'd given everything for the past month, I thought, they deserve something tonight. Something that says, I see you, I appreciate you, and you matter to me. You 4. New room. Tonight. For faces. For shades of red. 0 refusals. Linger didn't even pretend to be nervous anymore. She launched herself at me like a heat-seeking missile. Chun Tao and Li Lan followed, blushing but willing. Li Mei stood to the side, twisting her sleeves until I pulled her in. For women. 1 room. One guy who'd somehow gotten good at this through sheer repetition and system coaching. Chun Tao tasted like rice. Linger was already biting my ear. Li Lan kissed my neck and laughed while doing it, because she was incapable of being serious for more than 30 seconds. Li Mei, ever practical, dealt with my belt before I even thought about it. What followed was a full production. For completely different personalities, for different energies, all happening at once. Chun Tao, soft and clinging. Linger, tireless chaos gremlin who treated the whole thing like an adventure. Li Lan, giggly and bold. Li Mei, quiet intensity, restrained gasps that somehow cut deeper than anyone's noise. It was like conducting an orchestra where every instrument played in a different key, but somehow it all worked. Outside, Lu Mei and Xiao Ruoli and the others sat in what had become the world's most awkward listening lounge. They'd been doing this for weeks, and it never got normal. Lu Mei stared at her sewing. Xiao Ruoli stared at her book, both of them staring at absolutely nothing. Afterward, 4 women piled on me like kittens in a basket. Chun Tao on my left, tear-stained and smiling. Linger sprawled across my chest, already mumbling about tomorrow's wine batch. Li Lan tucked against my right side, finally quiet. Li Mei at my feet, flushed and content, probably dreaming about spreadsheets. Moonlight. For sleeping faces. A restaurant about to open. A village transformed. A family that ran like a machine and loved like a bonfire. 2 months ago, sandy rice, broken shack, 0 hope. Now, 9-item menu, commercial kitchen, 20 employees, 8 wives, an entire village economy, and a county magistrate who was basically my fan. The system turned me into this. But the women made it real. Every single one of them. And the story? The story was just getting started. Restaurant opens soon. Xiao Ruoli still hadn't been to the new room. But something told me that chapter was coming. The book on her lap was almost finished. And when she closed it, I'd be ready. Day 2 of restaurant ownership. I was already running on 0 sleep and pure adrenaline. Yesterday taught me one critical lesson. We needed more people. Specifically, we needed people with charm. So I recruited 10 village wives. Young, sharp, good with customers. Because here's the thing about sending rough farm hands to serve food. They grunt, they spill soup, they scare children. The wives? They smiled, they chatted, they remembered orders. Customer service revolution, ancient China edition. Arrived at Jushin Lu, that's what we named the restaurant, means gathering freshness. And Xiao Ruoli had already cleaned the entire dining hall before sunrise. This woman's internal clock was set to terrifyingly efficient. In the kitchen, Lu Mei and Li Ju commanded an army of cooks like twin generals. Fresh wild beef steaming on the counter. A mountain of cleaned crawfish. Braising pots bubbling with fish and meat, sending smells out the door that were basically free advertising. Let's make today even better than yesterday, I told the crew. The village wives chirped back in unison like a cheerful chorus. Tables set. Chopsticks polished. Floors spotless. We were ready. Doors opened. Customers flooded in. Yesterday's regulars came back hungry. New customers came because word had spread overnight. The dining hall filled up in minutes. The village wives were incredible, weaving between tables with plates held high, voices bright and clear. Your spicy crawfish is here. Rice wine? Enjoy it slow. They turned what could have been chaos into a smooth operation. I hired 10 women and accidentally created the best waitstaff in the entire county. The private rooms were where the real money lived. The county magistrate's colleagues showed up, rich merchants from across town. They ordered iron pot braised goose and 5-spice beef by name. I went in personally to toast them, and they were practically throwing compliments at me. Chef Chun, the food is perfect, the wine is perfect, even the service is perfect. I was being called Chef Chun by wealthy people. Me, the kid who ate sand rice 2 months ago. If my parents could see me now. Actually, let's not go there. Eyes are getting wet. Moving on. The kitchen was a well-oiled machine. My cooks followed the system recipes precisely. Braised beef, so tender it fell apart on the chopstick. Crawfish with the perfect kick of spice and heat. And the iron pot goose. That goose was so good people were fighting over the last pieces. Runners grabbed plates the second they were done and sprinted them to tables. Everything arrived hot. No exceptions. We ran nonstop until late afternoon. When the last customer finally waddled out, literally waddled, that man ate 3 servings of beef. The entire staff collapsed. The village wives were drenched in sweat, but grinning ear to ear. I paid them more than farming ever did. The cooks lay flat on the kitchen floor like defeated soldiers. The runners couldn't feel their legs. Then Xiao Ruoli walked over with the account book and a smile she was trying very hard to suppress. Today's profit, after ingredients and wages, 7 taels of silver. I grabbed the book, stared at the numbers. Read them again. 7 taels. In one day? That's what an average family earned in half a year. The private rooms alone made 5 taels, Ruoli continued, pointing at the columns with her elegant finger. The main hall added another 2+ from braised goods and wine sales. I patted her shoulder. You're amazing, Ruoli. Her face went pink. She looked down. It's just my job. It's just my job, she says. The woman who single-handedly managed accounts, inventory, scheduling, customer relations, and staff coordination while looking like she belonged in a palace instead of a fish restaurant. Just her job. Sure, Ruoli. Sure. Back at the village, I shared the news. The house erupted. Chun Tao clapped. Linger screamed. Lu Mei immediately started planning a celebration feast because her response to all emotions was cooking. Wang Hu and the village crew rushed over and turned it into a full party. We set up tables in the yard. Braised beef, crawfish, rice wine. The whole menu, served to our own people. Everyone who helped build this ate like kings tonight. Linger stood up, raised her wine cup, eyes glistening, and said something that shut the whole yard up. If my dad were still alive, he'd be so proud of you, Chen Xian. Chun Tao's eyes went red. Li Mei's too. Even the village men looked away and blinked hard. These women lost everything. Parents, homes, futures, and somehow ended up here, at a table overflowing with food, working for a restaurant they helped build, married to a guy who 2 months ago couldn't feed himself. I didn't say anything, just kept piling food on their plates. That was enough. Night. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, smiling like an idiot. 7 taels a day. If we kept this up, and we would keep this up, that's over 200 taels a month. We could buy property, build real houses, stock food for years, send kids to school, help the entire village. 2 months ago I owned 1 broken shack, half a bowl of sandy rice, and a rusty spear tip. Today I owned a restaurant, a reservoir lease, a processing workshop, a braised fish empire, a fishing fleet, 20+ employees, the county magistrate's favor, and a family of 8 extraordinary women who turned my impossible life into something beautiful. Tomorrow we'd do it again. Better, faster, bigger. I fell asleep smiling. For the first time since my parents died, the future wasn't something to survive. It was something to look forward to. The restaurant was printing money, but I discovered a problem that every successful business eventually hits: logistics. My employees were commuting an hour each way from the village to town every single day. In good weather, annoying. In rain and wind, miserable. And our braised goods were being trucked from the village workshop, which worked fine until we got slammed with customers, and suddenly we're telling rich merchants, Sorry, the beef is coming. Eventually, not a great look for a restaurant that just became the hottest spot in town. I was sitting in the corner of the dining hall doing math in my head when Xiao Ruoli appeared with her account book. Because this woman had a sixth sense for whenever I was thinking about business problems. We need a place in town, I said. The courtyard next to the restaurant is vacant, she replied instantly. 3 rooms plus a large kitchen. 300 coins a month. Perfect for staff housing and on-site braising. She'd already scouted it. Before I even finished my thought, she had the solution ready. This woman was operating 2 steps ahead of me at all times. I was the CEO, but she was the brain. Rent it. Now. She nodded and walked away to handle paperwork like it was already done. In her mind, it probably was. Back at the village, I reorganized the entire operation. This was my biggest management challenge yet, splitting one production line into 2 without dropping quality or output. Team Town. Lu Mei leads 5 women at the new courtyard kitchen. Braised goods made fresh on-site, right next to the restaurant. No more transport delays. No more. Sorry, we're out of beef. Team Village. Chun Tao and Li Mei run the original workshop. Keep producing braised fish and pickled meats for the restaurant overflow and the market stalls. Wang Hu's street sales operation doesn't stop just because we have a restaurant now. Those scattered customers still want their fish. For workers moved into the town courtyard rooms. No more pre-dawn commutes. No more arriving exhausted. Everyone was thrilled. Lu Mei grabbed the braising recipes with both hands, and her eyes were on fire. I guarantee the town kitchen will match the village kitchen. Exactly. This woman took quality control personally. Insult her braised fish, and she'd probably fight you. Chun Tao puffed up her chest. Village operations won't miss a beat. Count on us. 2 days later, the town courtyard was operational. For massive braising pots, identical to the village setup. Lu Mei's test batch of braised fish came out so perfect that even the pickiest cook in my restaurant said, "Sister Lu, this is flawless." She smiled like she'd won a war. Because to her, she had. The workers' rooms had straw mattresses and actual shelter. Guys who'd been waking at 3 a.m. to walk an hour in the dark were now rolling out of bed and strolling 30 seconds to work. Morale went through the roof. Meanwhile, back at the village workshop, business as usual, but better. Chun Tao and Li Mei kept the production humming. Li Wan tracked inventory with scary precision. I've increased daily output by 20%, just in case. This woman built in safety margins without being asked. Professional. Li Mei was sealing clay jars of rice wine for aging. 3 months in the cellar, and we can sell these as premium aged liquor by spring. She was already planning revenue streams for next season. My 16-year-old wife was doing long-term financial planning. I married a hedge fund manager. 2 production lines. Running in parallel. Town kitchen for fresh daily restaurant supply. Village workshop for restaurant backup, plus retail market sales. Xiao Ruoli reconciled both sets of books every single day without a single coin discrepancy. The woman was a human spreadsheet. Evening inspection. I checked the town courtyard first. Lu Mei rattled off the day's numbers without looking at any paper. 30 pounds braised fish, 20 pounds beef, 50 pounds crawfish used. Surplus ready for tomorrow morning. Just needs reheating. She ran that kitchen like a Swiss watch. Then I swung by the village workshop. Chun Tao and Li Mei were packing braised fish into bamboo baskets for Wang, whose morning market run. Today's fish came out extra fragrant, Chun Tao said with pride. Li Mei was sealing wine jars with the focused intensity of someone handling precious gems. Both locations, busy, organized, humming along. 2 engines powering 1 machine. I sent crawfish and braised beef to both crews for dinner. Town side. Lu Mei and her women sat in a circle, eating their own product, laughing under lantern light. Village side. Chun Tao, Li Wan, and the others clinked rice wine cups and traded jokes. 2 teams, same family, same mission. Walking home under the moon, I did the math. 2 kitchens producing at full capacity. A restaurant clearing 7+ tails daily. A market stall operation that never stopped. Supply chains locked in for goose, beef, fish, crawfish, and wine. 40-something employees across all operations. Backup inventory at both locations. I was running a supply chain. At 16, in ancient China. With no business degree, no MBA, just a robot in my head and 8 wives who were collectively smarter than me. Behind me, apparently, Xiao was standing at the restaurant door, watching me walk away and smiling. I didn't see it, but she was. The woman who managed my books, found my properties, organized my staff, and kept the entire financial empire from collapsing. She was smiling at my back like someone who'd finally found a person worth believing in. I didn't know it then, but I was about to find out. Moonlight. 2 workshops. Parallel production lines. And somewhere between the numbers and the braising pots, a family that worked like a machine and loved like a fire. Tomorrow, more fish, more beef, more money, more building. This was just the beginning of the beginning. Half a month since the restaurant opened. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I stopped. Not because something went wrong, because everything went right. The restaurant had found its rhythm. Customers flowed in predictably. Staff knew their jobs. The town kitchen and village workshops synced up like 2 lungs breathing together. Xiao account book smile had gone from rare sighting to daily occurrence. The machine was running itself. And that's when it hit me. I'd been so busy building an empire that I'd completely neglected the people who built it with me. When was the last time I actually SAT with my wives? Not to assign tasks, not to discuss inventory, not to review accounts. Just sat like a family. I couldn't remember. That was the answer. And it was a terrible one. So I left the restaurant early. Walked home while the sun was still painting the sky orange. Arrived at the village to the smell of dinner cooking and the sight of 8 women doing 8 different things. Lu Mei and Chun Tao at the stove. Linger showing herbs to Xiao. The Li sisters mending worker uniforms in the golden light. They all looked up when I came through the gate, and the warmth in their eyes nearly knocked me over. "You're home early?" Xiao stood up, surprised. She actually put down her account book. For this woman, that was the equivalent of a normal person dropping everything and running. "Restaurant stable. Tonight I'm here. For you guys, I made dinner myself." Well, I directed dinner. Iron pot fish stew bubbling away, 5-spice beef sliced thin, garlic crawfish glistening red, and Linger's special osmanthus rice wine that smelled like liquid autumn. The full restaurant menu, served at home, for the people who actually deserved it. We sat around the table, all 9 of us, and for the first time in weeks, nobody talked about fish prices or delivery schedules or account balances. They told stories. Which customer ate so much braised fish he couldn't stand up? Which rich merchant tried to buy our wine jars, not just the wine inside? Which village wife got complimented by a customer for being pretty and blushed so hard she dropped a plate? I sat there listening, and my chest felt so full it hurt. These women, who'd arrived in my life starving, terrified, and hopeless, were laughing. Actually laughing. Telling funny stories from the business they helped build. Pouring wine for each other. Stealing crawfish off each other's plates. I went around the table like a waiter at the world's most personal restaurant. Gave Lu Mei the softest piece of fish because her stomach was sensitive. She'd been working the braising pots so hard she sometimes forgot to eat properly. Peeled crawfish for Linger because she loved them but always got sauce on her nose. Poured Xiao half a cup of wine. Just half. Because she always said she couldn't drink while doing accounts. And even tonight, she'd probably sneak back to her numbers. Served. Chun Tao, Li Wan, Li Lan, Li Ju, Li Mei. Each one got something specific, something that said, "I notice you. I know what you like. I haven't forgotten." They all blushed. Every single one. 8 grown women turning pink because their husband remembered their food preferences. It cost me nothing and meant everything. After dinner, Linger dragged me outside to teach me a folk song she'd learned from a village woman. She sang it terribly. I sang it worse. We both laughed until our stomachs hurt. Chun Tao and Lu Mei cleaned up slowly, deliberately, setting aside braised beef and wine for later tonight, with the kind of shy smile that meant exactly what you think it meant. Then night came, and something shifted. No system quest. No task timer. No pressure. Just me and the quiet desire to be close to the people I loved. I sat on the bed and reached for Lu Mei's hand first. Her fingers smelled like spices, cinnamon, star anise, bay leaf, permanently scented from weeks over the braising pots. I rubbed her rough fingertips and asked, "You've been working too hard at the town kitchen, haven't you?" She leaned against me, voice soft as water. "As long as you remember us, it's not hard." That sentence hit me like a truck. I turned to Chun Tao. She was doing her signature move, head down, twisting her sleeves, ears blazing red. I tilted her chin up. Her eyes were shimmering. I kissed her forehead and said, "The village workshop never missed a single delivery because of you." "Thank you." She grabbed my arm and held on like she'd never let go. Ling didn't wait for her turn. She burrowed into my lap and demanded rewards with the subtlety of a puppy who wants treats. I laughed, kissed the top of her head, and listened to her chatter about finding a new herb that could make the rice wine even better. Even in my arms, she was innovating. Then I reached for Xiao Ruoli. She was sitting apart, watching us all with that calm expression, like she always did. I pulled her close. She went stiff for exactly 1 second, then melted. "Stop burning yourself out on the accounts," I whispered. "I'm here." She didn't speak, but her fingers found my shirt and gripped it tight. That was worth more than any words she could have said. The Li sisters gathered around. Li Wan steady and quiet, offering me warm water with a blush. Li Lan, Li Ju, Li Mei pressing close, shy but needing to be near. I held each of their hands and said small, specific things. Things that told them I saw what they did, that I valued them, that they weren't just workers in my operation. They were the reason the operation existed at all. No quest completion chime, no stat boost, no skill unlock. Just moonlight through the window, 8 women gathered close, warm food in our stomachs, and a silence that felt like the opposite of loneliness. This was what I'd been building toward. Not the restaurant, not the money, not the reservoir or the braised fish empire or the county magistrate's approval. This, a room full of people who started with nothing, who found each other in a snowstorm, and who turned a broken shack into a home and a home into a life worth living. The restaurant could burn down tomorrow, and I'd rebuild it in a week. But this, 8 women leaning against me in the moonlight, trusting me, loving me, believing in the future we were making together. This was irreplaceable. I held them all a little tighter. Best night in weeks. No system required. Business was booming. Money was flowing. Life was good. Too good. And that's when the system reminded me that having nice things means people want to take your nice things. Security task. Build guard teams. Collect scrap iron. Forge weapons, armor, and a 10-shot repeating crossbow. I'm sorry, a what? A 10-shot repeating crossbow? 2 months ago, I was making spears from rusty junk and sticks. Now the system wanted me to build ancient China's version of a machine gun. The escalation in this game was unhinged. But the system had a point. I was running a restaurant, a reservoir, 2 workshops, and employed half a county. Every bandit, bully, and jealous neighbor within 50 miles was probably eyeing my operation like a buffet. Time to stop being a fish merchant and start being a fish merchant with an army. Called a meeting in the yard. Uncle Fu, Wang Hu, trusted villagers. Laid it out straight. We're rich now. Rich people get robbed. Solution, 2 guard teams, village squad. Uncle Fu in command, 20 strong young men, protecting the village and workshop. Uncle Fu slammed his chest so hard I thought he'd crack a rib. Not even a stray cat gets in. Town squad. Wang Hu leads 10 sharp guys, patrolling the restaurant and courtyard compound around the clock. Wang Hu's exact words. Anyone starts trouble, I break their legs. This kid had been waiting his entire life for permission to be intimidating. Guard teams, sorted. Now for the fun part. Wang Hu, put up notices in town. We're buying scrap iron. All of it. Every broken plow, cracked pot, bent nail, I want it all. And find me 2 experienced blacksmiths. Wang Hu's eyes went massive. Are we making swords? Swords, armor, and a crossbow that fires 10 arrows without reloading. The entire yard went silent. Then everyone started talking at once. You'd think I announced we were building a spaceship. The next few days were chaos in the best way. Uncle Fu ran guard tryouts like a drill sergeant. Every young man in the village wanted in. He picked 20, the strongest, the calmest, the ones who could follow orders without doing something stupid. I taught them basic combat formations and fighting techniques using the system's guard commander knowledge. Within a week, these farm boys were moving in coordinated groups, throwing punches with proper form, and looking genuinely scary. Turns out, well-fed young men with purpose transform into soldiers fast. Wang Hu's town squad strapped short swords to their waists and patrolled the restaurant perimeter with faces so serious that the local troublemakers took one look and found somewhere else to be. Just the presence of armed guards killed 90% of potential problems. Zhang Ba's old buddies. Haven't seen them since. Meanwhile, scrap iron poured into the village like a river. Broken plows from farmers, cracked pots from housewives, old tools from blacksmith shops. Everyone within 10 miles was selling us their junk. I set up a forge on empty land outside the village. The two old blacksmiths I hired looked at the mountain of scrap and stroked their beards doubtfully. Son, this junk is full of impurities. Refining it into quality steel is nearly impossible. Watch this. I followed the system's forging instructions, added a special heat-resistant herb. From Linger's collection to the furnace, that girl's plant knowledge was saving my life in ways neither of us expected, then adjusted the bellows rhythm to a specific pattern. The molten iron in the furnace slowly transformed, impurities sinking to the bottom, the metal above turning clear and bright. The old blacksmiths stared with their mouths open. What sorcery is this? The iron is purifying itself, not sorcery. Just a system cheat code and a really good herbalist wife. But I kept that to myself. First batch of refined steel came out glowing blue-green, ringing like a bell when struck. Beautiful metal. We immediately started forging from the blueprints. Long swords, sharp enough to shave with, balanced perfectly, edges that could cut through wood like paper. Armor, light, thin, but incredibly hard. You could wear it under regular clothes and still stop a blade. And the masterpiece, the 10-shot repeating crossbow. Steel body, custom arrow magazine, hair trigger mechanism. Pull the trigger, 10 arrows fire in rapid succession. Range, 30 meters. Power, enough to punch through a wooden plank at full distance. Wong tested it. One squeeze. 10 arrows. The target board looked like a porcupine. His face was pure religious ecstasy. Uncle, this is the greatest thing I've ever held. The guard teams suited up. New swords, new armor, new crossbows. 20 village guards and 10 town guards went from enthusiastic farmers to don't mess with us overnight. Uncle Fu swung his new sword and grinned. This blade is 10 times better than a wood-chopping axe, which was a weird comparison, but I appreciated the enthusiasm. Standing by the forge at sunset, watching firelight glint off rows of freshly made weapons, I felt something I'd never felt before, secure. Not just fed, not just warm, not just employed, actually safe. Xiao Ruoli appeared beside me with a cloth to wipe my sweat. Now maybe we can all sleep peacefully. I took her hand. Yeah, we can. She didn't pull away. We stood there watching the last light fade over the village. Our village, with its workshops and guards and forge and families and futures. 2 months ago, one starving boy, one rusty spear tip. Now, 30 armed guards, refined steel weapons, repeating crossbows, a commercial empire, and a woman standing next to me whose hand fit perfectly in mine. The system had shown me where to find iron or deposits too. That meant we wouldn't need to buy scrap forever. We could mine our own steel. The implications were staggering. But that was tomorrow's quest. Tonight, the forge cooled, the guards patrolled, and Wong family village slept under protection for the first time in its history. Nobody was taking this from us. Not bandits, not bullies, not anyone. I built this with fish and determination and a magic robot brain. And now I defend it with steel. Guards? Check. Weapons? Check. But something was still bugging me. I looked at my village, bustling workshops, ox carts hauling goods in and out, money flowing everywhere, and realized we had a critical vulnerability. Anyone could just walk in. No gate, no walls, no warning system. We had armed guards with repeating crossbows, but they'd only know about trouble when trouble was already punching them in the face. We need a front gate. And watchtowers. Uncle Fu slapped his thigh so hard it echoed. Yes. This village has been an open door since my grandfather's time. Anyone wanders in whenever they want. Wong, who was already mentally measuring trees. I'll get the biggest logs in the forest. That gate will be indestructible. The construction was magnificent. Wong, whose crew dragged back pine logs so thick you couldn't wrap your arms around them. The village carpenter followed my blueprints, which were actually the system's blueprints. But at this point, everyone had stopped questioning where my mysteriously perfect plans came from. The gate was a beast, tall enough and wide enough for 2 ox carts side by side. Thick wooden doors reinforced with iron plating and massive iron nails. It looked like the entrance to a fortress, not a fishing village. When you closed it, it made this deep, satisfying boom that said, "Nothing's getting through here." The watchtowers flanked the gate like bodyguards, 30 feet tall each, wooden platforms on top with railings, clear sightlines in every direction. You could spot someone approaching from miles away. We put guards up there with crossbows, and suddenly our village entrance looked like a military checkpoint. 10 days. That's all it took. From open village to fortified compound in 10 days. On unveiling day, the entire village came to gawk. Guards stood on the towers with swords and crossbows, looking like soldiers from a war painting. The villagers were ecstatic. Nobody sneaking up on us now. Even bandits would think twice. We should have done this years ago. One old lady teared up and said she could finally sleep without worrying about robbers. That one hit me in the chest. But I wasn't done, because I'd identified problem number 2, speed. Ox carts were slow. Guards on foot were slower. If something happened at the restaurant in town, it'd take an hour for village backup to arrive. By then, whatever crisis existed would be long over. We needed horsepower. Literal horsepower. We need horses, I told Shaoroli. 20 of them. For hauling and mounted patrols. She checked the accounts, did some mental math, and nodded. We can afford it. I'll go to the horse market personally. 2 days later, Shaoroli returned with 20 horses. Beautiful animals, muscular, glossy coats, stamping their hooves at the village gate like they knew they'd arrived somewhere important. This woman went shopping for horses and came back with a cavalry. The guard team lost their minds. These farm boys had never been near this many horses at once. They were circling the animals with the wide-eyed reverence of kids at a candy shop. I picked a few guys who'd ridden before and started a crash course in horsemanship. Within days, we had a functioning mounted patrol unit. Picture it. Armed riders in light armor, swords at their hips, crossbows on their backs, galloping along village perimeter trails at sunset. 2 months ago, these same guys were skinny farmers fighting over rice rations. Now they looked like an actual military unit. The glow-up was insane. Daily routine, fully operational, dawn, gates open. Ox carts roll in and out. Tower guards scan the horizon. Mounted patrol does a morning sweep. Daytime, workers come and go freely. Guards watch everyone who enters. Horses help haul cargo to town, cutting travel time in half. Night, gates closed. That big iron-plated door booms shut and stays shut. Tower lanterns lit. Mounted patrol circles the village exterior. Inside, every workshop, every home, every sleeping wife, protected. Uncle Fu beamed at me from the gate. Anyone who tries to mess with us now is going home in pieces. I told him to also send horses to Wang Hu's town squad. If trouble hit the restaurant, I wanted armed riders arriving in minutes, not hours. Full coverage. Village to town. No gaps. Shaoroli handed me the final accounting ledger that evening. She'd tracked every coin spent on gates, towers, and horses. But she'd also written a horse feeding schedule, tower guard rotation plan, and patrol route map. I didn't ask for any of that. She just did it. Because she was Shaoroli and her brain operated at a level that made the rest of us look like we were napping. Spent a lot, she said, but worth it. You're incredible. You know that. Her face went pink. It's all for this family, she whispered, looking away. For this family. Every time she said something like that, casually, quietly, like it wasn't the most meaningful thing anyone had ever said, my heart did something stupid. Night fell. Gates closed with a boom. Tower lanterns glowed. Hoofbeats faded into the distance as the mounted patrol began their circuit. Wang family village sat in the darkness like a sleeping dragon, peaceful, warm, and absolutely not to be messed with. 2 months ago, one leaky shack, no door, wind blowing through every crack. Now, iron-plated gates, 30-foot watchtowers, 30 armed guards, 20 warhorses, repeating crossbows, refined steel weapons, and a perimeter defense system designed by a robot in my head and organized by the most brilliant woman I'd ever met. I started this journey trying not to starve. Now I was building a kingdom. And Shaoroli, standing next to me at the gate, ledger in hand, moonlight on her face, was starting to look less like my accountant and more like my queen. One day soon, I'd tell her that. But tonight, the gates were secure, the horses were fed, and the village slept safe. That was enough. For now, was checking the restaurant books when a government messenger sprinted in looking like he'd seen a ghost. Mr. Chun, the county magistrate needs you. Now, well, that's never a relaxing sentence, is it? Left Shaoroli in charge, She could run that restaurant blindfolded at this point, and rode to the county office. The magistrate, my favorite white-bearded customer, was sitting behind his desk looking about 10 years older than last time. Chen Xian, I'll be direct. 1,000 refugees are heading this way from the south. They've already been raiding food stores in other areas. I need your help before they reach us. 1,000. Hungry, desperate people with nothing to lose. That wasn't a crowd. That was a natural disaster with legs. My blood went cold. A mob that size could flatten my restaurant, my workshops, my village, everything I'd built in 2 months, gone in one afternoon. What do you need? I asked. Your guards are the best equipped force in the county, he said, which was both flattering and terrifying. Set up checkpoints on the main road. Keep order. And if you could set up a soup kitchen for the weak ones, elderly, children, sick, it'll keep them calm. Hungry people riot. Fed people wait. Smart man. Feed the vulnerable. Defuse the mob. Humanitarian aid as crowd control. Done. 30 guards, full armor, crossbows, horses, plus food, rice porridge and grain biscuits. We'll have it ready. The magistrate nearly cried with relief. After this, I'm recommending you to the Imperial Court for commendation. Imperial commendation. The orphan boy who ate sand rice might get a medal from the Emperor. But that was a later problem. Right now, survival mode. Galloped home. Called emergency meeting. Uncle Fu, Wang Hu, full guard squad, everyone. Refugees arriving in 3 days. Possibly sooner. This is not a drill. The yard went dead quiet. Wang Hu, 30 guards, full gear, crossbows loaded, horses saddled. Report to the county office and set up checkpoints on the southern road. You're working alongside the police. Wang Hu's jaw tightened. He nodded. Uncle Fu, mobilize every woman in the village. Big pots, maximum rice porridge, steam as many grain biscuits as the ovens can handle. Load everything onto carts and get it to the checkpoints. When you see old people, kids, or sick refugees, feed them first. Don't let anyone get desperate enough to start a fight. Uncle Fu was already heading for the door before I finished. The village transformed into a war room. Guard members assembled in full armor, steel breastplates, swords at their hips, repeating crossbows on their backs, and mounted their horses. They looked real. Not farm boys playing soldier anymore. These were men ready to protect something. The village women attacked the kitchens. Every pot we owned was boiling rice. Every steamer was packed with biscuits. The wheat smell mixed with the rice steam and hung over the village like a cloud. We were mass-producing food like a factory. I rode out to inspect the checkpoint personally. The police and my guards had built roadside shelters, set up the crossbow positions with clear firing lines, and erected the soup kitchen tent. Everything was organized. Everything was ready. I pulled Wang Hu aside. Listen to me carefully. These people aren't enemies. They're starving families who lost everything, just like we were 2 months ago. Compassion first. Talk them down. Feed the weak. Keep things calm. He nodded, serious. But if anyone tries to rush the food, charge the checkpoint, or attack our people, you do not hesitate. Protect the team. Protect the supplies. Crossbows are a last resort, but they are a resort. I understand, Uncle. I know where the line is. Good kid. Best kid. I was trusting him with 30 armed men in a powder keg situation. He was maybe 15 years old, but he had more spine than most grown men I'd met. Evening. The watchtower guard shouted down. Movement. Large group approaching from the south. I climbed the tower. Looked south. My stomach dropped. A dark mass of people stretching across the road. Hundreds. Maybe 1,000. Moving slowly, like a river of misery. Even from a distance I could tell. Thin bodies, ragged clothes, shuffling feet. These weren't bandits. These were people. Broken, starving, desperate people who probably looked exactly like my 8 wives did when they first showed up at my village in a snowstorm. Deep breath. Everyone in position. Stick to the plan. Stay calm. Wang Hu and the police stepped forward as the first refugees approached. Government soup kitchen ahead. Elderly, children, and sick come forward first. Everyone else form a line. No pushing. Tense moment. Some refugees at the front surged forward. Pure hunger instinct. Nothing personal. Then they saw the crossbows. 30 guards in steel armor on horseback. Weapons ready. Faces stone-cold serious. The surge stopped. The vulnerable ones shuffled to the soup tent. Old women with hollow eyes. Children so thin their heads looked too big for their bodies. A man carrying his unconscious daughter. Village women handed them porridge and biscuits. They ate so fast they choked. They cried and said thank you between mouthfuls. I stood watching and felt my throat close up. 2 months ago, that was US. That was my 8 wives, starving in a snowstorm. That was me, counting grains of sand rice. One bad turn of luck, and these refugees could have been anyone. Could have been me. I couldn't save all of them. 1,000 people needed more than one village could give. But I could feed the ones in front of me. I could keep order so nobody got trampled. I could make sure that tonight, at least, some hungry children went to sleep with something in their stomachs. Night fell. The refugees settled. No riots. No raids. No violence. Just exhausted people sitting in the dirt, eating porridge, too tired to cause trouble. The checkpoint held. The guards held. The food held. I left Wang Hu in command and rode home. The village gates boomed shut behind me. Tower lanterns glowed. Safe. But I knew this was only day one. The real test was coming. 1,000 mouths don't stay quiet forever. The next few days would determine whether my preparations were enough or whether everything I'd built would crumble. Lying in bed that night, I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing those hollow faces. Those children. That man with his daughter. I'd built gates and towers and weapons to protect what was mine. But tonight reminded me why I built it all. Not for money or power or status. For safety. For family. For the knowledge that the people I loved would never be those refugees. Never again. The refugees were sitting quietly at the checkpoint eating porridge. Crisis averted. But now I had a different problem. 1,000 homeless people camped on my doorstep with nowhere to go. Then the system chimed in with possibly its smartest suggestion yet. These refugees are mostly farmers. Hard workers. You need labor. They need food. Do the math. For once, the robot and I had the exact same thought at the exact same time. These weren't just mouths to feed. They were hands. Hands that could farm, build, cook, carry, craft. My restaurant needed workers. My workshops needed workers. My future farms needed workers. And here was a 1,000-person workforce literally sitting outside my village eating my porridge. Rode straight to the county magistrate. I want to take in the refugees. His eyebrows nearly left his face. All of them. Chen, that's 1,000 people. Feeding them alone could bankrupt you. And what if there are criminals hiding among them? I'll feed them through work, not charity. They earn their meals. I'll screen everyone personally. Troublemakers get handed to you. Good people stay and become productive citizens. All I need is an official document saying I'm doing this with government approval, so nobody accuses me of building a private army or something. The magistrate thought about it. On one hand, risky. On the other hand, someone else solving his refugee crisis for free. Deal. I'll write the document now. But if anything goes wrong, it's on you. Document in hand, I galloped to the refugee camp. Found the leader, a gaunt man with hungry cheeks but steel in his eyes. The kind of guy who'd kept 1,000 people alive through pure willpower. I liked him immediately. I'm Chen from Wang Family Village. The government authorized me to take you in. I'll feed you. I'll give you work. Eventually you'll earn wages. Only condition, follow the rules, work hard, no trouble. Deal? He stared at me for 3 seconds. Then he dropped to his knees. Behind him, like dominoes, the entire refugee crowd went down. 1,000 people kneeling in the dirt. If we can eat, we'll do anything. We won't cause you a single problem. I hauled him back to his feet. I did not need 1,000 people bowing to me. That was way too much pressure, and immediately started operations. Set up cooking stations on empty land a kilometer from the village gate. Hauled in rice, flour, vegetables, braised fish. Massive pots of porridge. Mountains of steamed biscuits. The refugees lined up and received their first real meal in. I don't even know how long. Some of them were shaking so hard they could barely hold their bowls. A lot of them cried while eating. I recognized those tears. My wives had cried the same way over that first bowl of boar soup, back when this all started. Hungry tears. Relief tears. The kind that mean, maybe I won't die today. After everyone ate, I went full operations manager. Young, strong men. Follow Wang Hu into the mountains. Cut wood. Build shelters. We need tents by tonight. Women, report to Lu Mei. Wash vegetables. Prep tomorrow's food. You're joining the kitchen corps. Anyone with carpentry or masonry skills, come with me. We're picking building sites. The energy shift was instant. These people went from hopeless, shuffling zombies to motivated workers in the time it took to digest one bowl of porridge. Turns out, all humans need to stop being miserable is food and purpose. The woodcutting crew marched into the forest swinging axes like they had something to prove. The women surrounded the cooking stations and started organizing with frightening efficiency. Turns out refugee women who've been surviving on nothing for months are very motivated kitchen workers. And the craftsmen? They walked the empty land with me, pointing out good spots with genuine excitement. This high ground won't flood. Perfect for houses. That soil over there is rich. We can farm it. These guys had been farmers. They knew land. They knew building. They knew exactly what to do with empty earth and basic tools. I just had to point them in the right direction. The system's farm planning blueprints helped me zone everything. Housing east, farmland west, pathways through the middle. I sent for tools and grain from the village and assigned guards to oversee things. Fair treatment mandatory, no skimming food rations, but rules enforced strictly. Anyone causing problems, out. Immediately. By nightfall, one day, the empty field had transformed into a camp. Dozens of tents, cooking fires, chimneys smoking. 1,000 people who'd been wandering, starving, and dying that morning were now sitting around fires eating leftover porridge and biscuits, and smiling. The refugee leader found me before I left. He pressed a smooth stone into my hands, some kind of mountain good luck charm. Protects against evil spirits, he said, voice cracking. Please accept it. I held that stone and felt its weight. This man had carried it through months of starvation and wandering, and he gave it to me, a 16-year-old kid who gave him porridge. I rode home exhausted. Shaoruoli met me at the door with hot water. Everything settled? Yeah, they're good people. Just need a chance. She looked at the stone I placed on the table, then at my tired face. You did the right thing, she said quietly. That sentence, from her, was worth more than the magistrate's commendation. I looked out the window. In the distance, 2 sets of lights. Wong family village's warm glow and the refugee camp's flickering fires. 2 communities, reaching toward each other across the dark. Tomorrow, build permanent houses, clear farmland, assign jobs, integrate 1,000 people into my operation. The to-do list was enormous. But here's what the system didn't tell me and didn't need to. Those refugees weren't just labor. They were people who'd lost everything and were being given a second chance. Just like 8 women in a snowstorm. Just like a starving orphan with a rusty spear. I knew what it felt like to have nothing. And I knew what it meant when someone said, I'll feed you. Wong family village was about to get a lot bigger. And the boy who couldn't feed himself was about to become responsible for 1,000 more souls. No pressure. Moonlight. 2 fires burning. A smooth stone on my table. And a kingdom growing in the dirt. 10 days. 10 days. That's all it took to turn an empty field into a functioning neighborhood. I stood at the edge of the new settlement and genuinely could not believe my own eyes. The barren dirt lot where 1,000 starving refugees had huddled around campfires was now a planned community. East side, freshly plowed farmland stretching in neat rows, seeds already in the ground, little wooden signs marking each family's plot. Li, Wang, Zhang, actual property assignments. These people went from homeless to landowners in a week and a half. West side, rows upon rows of wooden houses. Not mansions, 1 bedroom, 1 living room, thatched roof, mud walls, but solid. Warm, dry, with doors that closed. After months of sleeping in ditches, these houses might as well have been palaces. And here's the part that made me proudest, public toilets. Built from brick and stone, with actual drainage ditches. 2 deep wells with wooden pulleys and buckets so nobody had to walk miles for water. Sanitation infrastructure. I was building a civilization from scratch, and I prioritized plumbing. My parents would have been so confused and so proud. Lida. That's what everyone called the refugee leader now, Big Brother Lee, was up on a roof frame hammering beams when I arrived. He jumped down grinning. Boss Chun, 3 more days, and every family has a real house. No more tents. I walked the settlement like a mayor inspecting his city. Checked the wells, clean water, sweet tasting. The old well digger, Lao Zhang, was tuning up the pulley mechanism with the pride of a master craftsman. Underground water here is better than river water, he said. This man had been a professional well builder before the famine destroyed his life. Now he was building wells again. Purpose restored. Walked to the farmland. Women on their knees pulling weeds around tiny green sprouts pushing through the soil. First growth. First hope. Visible in the dirt. I crouched down, felt the wet earth, told them to ask Wang Hu for any tools they needed. The village blacksmith could make anything. A woman holding a baby started crying. If not for you, boss, my child and I would be dead. Now we have land and a house. I am not emotionally equipped for 1,000 people being grateful to me simultaneously. My throat closed up. I just nodded and moved on before I made a fool of myself. Lume showed up with village women carrying baskets of braised fish and pickled vegetables. Brought snacks for everyone. She distributed food with the efficiency of a military supply operation, then told Lida, firewood running low? Take whatever you need from the back mountain. Don't be polite. Lume had gone from shy seamstress who cried on our wedding night to community logistics coordinator who manages food distribution for 1,000 people. The character development in this household was staggering. Lida bowed about 15 times and kept telling every refugee in earshot, remember Boss Chin's kindness. Work hard. And no slacking. I inspected the toilets and drainage. Clean. No smell. The women in charge of sanitation were doing an incredible job. I told them so, and they blushed. You said hygiene prevents disease, boss. We remembered. I taught 1,000 refugees one hygiene rule, and they followed it perfectly. Meanwhile, I couldn't get Wang Hu to wash his hands before lunch. Priorities. By evening, the settlement was alive. Chimneys smoking. Families cooking dinner in their own kitchens, or soon-to-be kitchens, at least. Men splitting firewood in front of their houses. Women mending clothes by lamplight. Children playing. Kids running around an open area, laughing, chasing each other, being kids again instead of tiny refugees trudging through mud. That sound. Children laughing in a place that was empty dirt 10 days ago. That was worth every coin I'd spent. Lida cornered me with a jug of rice wine his people had brewed from the new grain supply. The community made this. You have to taste it. I took a sip. Sweet, clean, warm going down. Actually really good. When the houses are done, I told him, we're throwing a proper banquet. His face split into the biggest grin I'd ever seen on a formerly starving man. Rode home. Gave Xiao Ruoli the update. She handed me the expense ledger with a knowing smile. You've spent a lot these past 10 days. Worth it? She looked at the numbers, then looked at me. The value they'll create will pay it back many times over, this woman. While I was out there feeling emotional about crying mothers and laughing children, she was already calculating the return on investment of humanitarian aid. We were the perfect team. I had the heart. She had the spreadsheet. These people are treasures, I said, looking toward the settlement where lights were winking out one by one as families went to sleep in real houses for the first time in months. Give them stability and they'll build wealth with their bare hands. Xiao Ruoli nodded. The settlement lights had merged with the village lights in the distance. You couldn't tell where Wang family village ended and the new community began. Two communities becoming one. That was the whole point. I started with 9 people in a shack, then 30 village helpers, then guard teams, then restaurant staff, then workshop employees. Now 1,000 new residents with houses, farmland, wells, and jobs. Wang family village wasn't a village anymore. It was becoming a town. And it all started because a starving kid said, I'll take all 8, in a snowstorm, and a robot in his head said, good choice. Night. 2 sets of lights merging into one constellation. Guard horses patrolling the perimeter. A smooth stone on my table. A ledger full of numbers that Xiao Ruoli had somehow made beautiful. Tomorrow there'd be more houses to build, more fields to plow, more mouths to feed, more problems to solve. But tonight, 1,000 people slept safe and warm, and that was enough. More than enough. Move-in day. And I'm not gonna lie, I got emotional. 10 days ago, empty dirt field. Today, a full neighborhood with hundreds of houses, toilets, wells, and baby crops poking through the soil. The original Wang family villagers were walking past the new settlement muttering, these refugees might end up living better than US. Which was both a compliment and a complaint, and I chose to hear only the compliment. I'd scheduled the big move for today and prepped welcome gifts, grain and fabric for every family. The refugees had been visiting their assigned houses every day like kids peeking at Christmas presents, running their hands along the smooth wood walls, probably still not believing it was real. Morning of move-in day, the settlement exploded with energy. Everyone wore their cleanest clothes, which, after months of refugee wandering, meant the outfit with the fewest holes. People were sweeping courtyards that didn't even have dust yet. Someone had cut red paper into good fortune characters and stuck them on door frames. Kids were running wild through the streets, screaming with joy. It looked like a festival. It was a festival. Hey, we're not homeless anymore. Festival. Then the county magistrate showed up, with a cart full of gifts, rice, fabric, and wine jugs. He looked around at the neat rows of houses, the plowed fields, the wells, the drainage systems, and his jaw slowly descended. Chen, this is 10 times better than I expected. I'm pretty sure he expected a mud pit with some tents. Instead, he got a planned community with zoning regulations and plumbing. Under promise, over deliver. Business 101. Lita led the refugees in a mass kneeling session. 1,000 people hitting the dirt simultaneously makes a sound, let me tell you. The magistrate waved them up, told them to work hard and stay out of trouble, and then sat down to eat. Lunch. Oh man, lunch. Dozens of tables pushed together in the central square. Fish stew, braised meat, grain biscuits, rice wine. An absolute feast served assembly line style. 1,000 people eating their first meal in their own home. Not a campfire. Not a checkpoint soup kitchen. Their home. With walls and a roof and a door that locked. People were crying into their food again. Happy crying. The good kind. The kind I'd seen from my own wives on that first night of boar soup, multiplied by 1,000. The magistrate, Xiao Ruoli, and I sat at the head table watching the chaos. Xiao Ruoli had her account book out, because of course she did. Even at a celebration banquet, this woman was tracking expenses per capita. After 3 rounds of wine, I stood up. Time for the big speech. Everyone, starting tomorrow, here's how it works. I pulled out the job assignment list I'd been planning for days. Farmers, report to Li Wan. Spring planting season waits for nobody. Get in those fields. Carpenters and masons, report to Wang, whose father. We're building workshops and warehouses next. Your skills just became the most valuable thing in this settlement. Young strong workers, split in half. One group goes to the reservoir for fishing under Wang Hu. Other group reports to the restaurant. You're the labor backbone now. Women, Group 1, learn braised food production under Lu Mei. You're joining the food empire. Women, Group 2, vegetable farming with Chun Tao. Fresh produce for the restaurant and the settlement. Anyone who can read and write. Report to Xiao Ruoli for accounting and warehouse management positions. 1,000 people listened in complete silence. Nobody argued. Nobody complained. After months of starving and wandering, being told, here's your job, here's your purpose, here's how you contribute, was the greatest gift I could give them. Then a hand shot up. Boss Chun, I used to cook at a restaurant in town. Can I work in the kitchen? Report to the restaurant tomorrow morning. Welcome aboard. The magistrate leaned over to me. You had this all planned out, didn't you? Right person, right job. That's how everyone sleeps well at night. He looked at me like I was a different species. I'm 16, sir. I just have a really good robot advisor and 8 wives who taught me management. Afternoon. Magistrate left. Xiao Ruoli and I walked the settlement together, checking assignments. People were already working, whitewashing walls, drawing water, weeding fields. Not because anyone told them to right now. Because they wanted to. They had homes and purpose and food and futures, and that combination turns people into engines. I stopped walking and looked at the whole scene. Houses stretching in rows, green sprouts in brown fields, smoke from kitchens, kids playing, workers building, women organizing, and asked Ruoli something that had been growing in my mind. Do you think this place could be bigger than Wang Family Village someday? She gazed at the fields, the rooftops, the distant hills. If you keep going like this, it won't just rival the village. It'll rival the town. I looked at her. She looked at me. The afternoon light was doing that thing where it made her face glow, and her eyes had this quiet fire in them. Not the cold, analytical stare from day one, but something warmer. Something that said, I believe in what you're building, and I believe in you. My heart did a backflip. Bad timing, heart. We're doing urban planning right now. Night fell over 2 communities that were rapidly becoming one. The settlement lights and village lights had fully merged. One continuous constellation of warm orange dots spread across the landscape. Guard horses patrolled the perimeter in wide circles. Somewhere, Lita was probably making another batch of rice wine to celebrate. I'd started with nothing, built a family, built a business, built a village defense system, and now I was building a town. The system gave me this power. My wives gave me this purpose, and 1,000 refugees gave me this responsibility. Somewhere in the numbers, between the farm plots and the job assignments and the house allocations, a former orphan kid had become a leader. Not because anyone appointed him, but because when people are hungry and lost, they follow whoever feeds them and gives them hope. And I was going to keep feeding them until nobody in this valley ever went hungry again. Moonlight over 1,000 rooftops. Xiao Ruoli's voice echoing in my head. It'll rival the town. Yeah, it will. Just watch. Everything was going too well. I should have known. I was in the settlement checking vegetable plots. Peaceful afternoon, green sprouts, birdsong, the whole picture. When Li Shan came sprinting out of the treeline like the forest was chasing him. Li Shan was the best hunter among the refugees, a guy who spent his days tracking deer and rabbits in the deep mountains. He was not a man who panicked easily. He was panicking. Boss Chun. Bandits. Over 100 of them. Attacking tonight. They want to steal everything and kidnap the women. My blood turned to ice water. You're sure? 100%. I heard 2 of them talking in the woods. Their leader's called Black Wind. They're coming after dark, 100 armed bandits. Coming for my village. My food. My wives. I had about 3 seconds of pure terror. Then something clicked in my brain. Maybe the system, maybe instinct, maybe just the fact that I'd been preparing for exactly this scenario for weeks, and the fear turned into something colder. Something useful. Don't tell anyone else yet. I don't want panic. Sent runners for Uncle Fu, Wang Hu, and Xiao Ruoli. Ordered the emergency gong struck. 3 sharp hits. The signal everyone knew meant, drop everything. Village square, now. Within minutes, every guard, every able-bodied refugee, every man who could hold a weapon was standing in front of me. Hundreds of faces looking up at the kid on the platform. Waiting. I kept my voice level. Steady. Even though my heart was trying to escape through my ribcage. Bandits are coming tonight. Over 100 of them. They want our homes, our food, and our people. But we are not the village we were 2 months ago. We have walls. We have weapons. We have each other. Tonight, they walk into our territory. And they don't walk out. Silence. Then fury. Every face in that crowd went from scared to angry in 1 second flat. Let them come. Nobody touches our home. We'll destroy them. These were people who'd already lost everything once. Their homes, their families, their futures. They'd just gotten it all back. An Inno bandit was taking it from them again. I raised my hand. Silence. Time for the plan. I'd been running combat scenarios in my head since we built the watchtowers. Never thought I'd actually need them. But here we were, and the plan snapped together like it had been waiting. 3 teams. Listen carefully. Team 1. Wang Hu, 50 men, positioned 3 kilometers out on the mountain road. Let the bandits pass without engaging. This was the bait. Make them think the road is clear. Team 2. Uncle Fu, 100 men, hidden in the forest 300 meters from the village entrance. Wait until half the bandit force passes, then attack from behind. Cut off their retreat. Slam the back door shut. Team 3. Me, defending the village gate. Watchtower archers and crossbowmen loaded and ready. We let the front half of the bandits approach the gate. Let them think they're about to break in. Then the trap springs. Gate opens. Bandits rush in, thinking they've won. Gate slams shut behind them. Cavalry charges from both flanks inside the walls. Uncle Fu's team hits them from behind outside the walls. Wang Hu's team sweeps down from the mountain road to mop up anyone who runs. Inside, outside, front, back. Nowhere to go. Classic hammer and anvil. With a side of, you walked into a kill box and didn't even know it. Everyone moved. Guards grabbed swords and crossbows. Refugees picked up hoes, carrying poles, anything heavy and swingeable. Every man had a weapon. Every man had a position. Every man had murder in his eyes. Xiao Ruoli took charge of civilian defense without me even asking. She organized the women to move grain and valuables into underground cellars. Set up boiling water stations. Prepared medical supplies, bandages, clean cloth, herbal remedies from Linger's stockpile. She turned the village interior into a field hospital and supply depot in under an hour. This woman was born for crisis management. While I planned the battle, she planned everything after the battle. We were 2 halves of the same brain. Night fell. The village went dark and quiet. Deliberately quiet. Every lantern doused except the watchtower torches, because those were supposed to be there, and extinguishing them would signal we knew something was coming. Hundreds of men crouched in darkness at their positions. Forest team, silent among the trees. Mountain team, invisible on the high ground. Gate team, pressed against walls, crossbows loaded, breathing controlled. Cavalry, horses' hooves wrapped in cloth to muffle sound, riders gripping reins with white knuckles. I stood on the watchtower, looked into the black void of the mountain road, listened. Wind, crickets, my own heartbeat. Then, distant footsteps, dozens of them, getting closer, low voices trying to whisper and failing. Metal clinking against metal. Black Wind and his 100 bandits, creeping toward us in the dark, thinking they were about to raid a sleeping village full of easy targets. They had no idea that the sleeping village had steel-armored guards with repeating crossbows. No idea that 200 armed men were hidden in the forest behind them. No idea that 50 more waited on the mountain at their backs. No idea that the 16-year-old fish merchant they planned to rob had spent weeks building a military defense system specifically for this moment. I gripped the watchtower railing, watched the dark shapes approach. Come on in, Black Wind. The door's open. But the cage? The cage is ready. The trap was set. The night was dark, and Black Wind walked right into it like a fly into a spider web wearing a blindfold. He saw the village gates slightly ajar, the watchtowers barely lit, and thought, easy pickings. I could practically hear his greed from the tower. No defenses. Rush in, grab the money and the women. His bandits charged forward howling like wolves. Over 100 of them, pouring down the mountain road, drunk on confidence and stupidity. Phase 1, they passed the 3-kilometer mark. Wang Hu's 50 men crouched in the shadows and did absolutely nothing. Let them through. That's the plan. Patience. Phase 2. Half the bandits pushed into the forest zone, 300 meters from the gate. Uncle Fu waited until exactly the right moment. Half in, half out. Then swung his sword and roared. Kill. 100 men erupted from the trees like the forest itself had come alive. Axes and swords fell like rain. A dozen bandits dropped in the first 3 seconds. The rest panicked, tried to retreat, and found Wang Hu's team had sealed the mountain road behind them. Trapped. Surrounded. Done. Meanwhile, at the gate, Black Wind and his front group reached the entrance. They could see inside, quiet, dark, apparently unguarded. I stood on the watchtower, watched them line up like targets at a shooting range, and gave the order I'd been waiting all night to give. Fire. 20 crossbows and a dozen bows released simultaneously. Arrows screamed through the air. Bandits screamed on the ground. Bodies dropped like sacks of grain. The first volley alone took out a quarter of them. Black Wind wasn't stupid, brutal, evil, but not stupid. He saw his men falling and bellowed for them to ram the gate with a log. They hit it hard. Bang. The gate cracked open a sliver. That was the moment. Cavalry, go! The gate swung wide open, not because they broke it, but because I wanted it open. 20 armored riders on horseback exploded through the gap, swords flashing in the torchlight, horses screaming, hooves thundering. They hit the bandit line like a steel fist hitting a paper wall. Simultaneously, guards and armed refugees poured from both flanks. The bandits found themselves surrounded on 3 sides with a cavalry charge in their face. It was not a fight. It was a blender. Black Wind himself raised his sword to fight, and Wang Hu, my beautiful, loyal, 15-year-old nephew, came at him from the side and took his arm. Off at the shoulder. Well, not off. But the cut was deep enough that Black Wind screamed, fell off his horse, and got dogpiled by 5 guys before he hit the ground. 30 minutes. That's all it took. 100+ bandits versus my defense system, and the result wasn't even close. 20-something captured alive, the rest eliminated. My side, a dozen guys with minor injuries. Minor. Cuts and bruises. Nobody died. My plan worked. Every single piece of it. The bait, the ambush, the false gate, the cavalry charge, the encirclement. It worked like a clock. But I wasn't done. Wang Hu, 50 men, were hitting their hideout. Now, because leaving the nest intact meant survivors could regroup. You don't kill a snake and leave the eggs. We dragged a captured bandit to lead us through the mountains. Found the hideout, a cave system hidden in a valley. Inside, A few dozen elderly people, women, and children, kidnapped civilians, not bandit families, plus about 10 bandits who'd stayed behind. The stay-behind bandits surrendered the moment they saw armed men in steel armor. Smart choice. The cave was stuffed with loot, gold, silver, fabric, grain, everything they'd stolen from the region for years. Half a cave of stolen wealth. Everything comes with us. Every prisoner, every coin. The civilians go free. We questioned the kidnapped people, confirmed they were just villagers taken from other towns, and released them to go home. Then we loaded the treasure onto horses and marched back. Dawn. Our column came through the countryside, 50 armed riders escorting prisoners and pack horses heavy with recovered loot. Every village we passed erupted. People ran out cheering, crying, offering water and food. Black Wind's gang is gone. The government couldn't do it, but Chun Xian did. He's a hero. An old woman grabbed my leg and wouldn't let go, sobbing that Black Wind's bandits had killed her son 2 years ago. A farmer pressed bread into my hands, saying they'd raided his harvest 3 times. These people had been terrorized for years, and I'd just ended it in one night. Back at the village, the county magistrate was already waiting. He'd ridden over the moment he heard. When he saw the pile of prisoners and the mountain of recovered loot, his face cycled through about 6 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, relief, joy, awe, political calculation, and finally, I need to take credit for this. Chun Xian, you've done an incredible service. I'm reporting this to the imperial court immediately. He ordered the dead bandits displayed as a warning, the living ones hauled to jail, the loot cataloged and returned to rightful owners where possible. Then he wrote a commendation on the spot and had it posted at our village gate. Chun Xian of Wang Family Village, brave and brilliant, bandit destroyer, protector of the people. Awarded 500 silver taels and the honorary plaque, guardian of peace and security, 500 taels. A plaque. Official imperial recognition. The villagers mobbed the commendation notice. The refugees fell to their knees again. These people had been victims of bandits before becoming refugees, and the man who gave them homes had just destroyed the thing that destroyed them. Boss Chun is our second father, they wept. I pulled everyone to their feet. I was covered in blood, not mine, exhausted, running on 0 sleep and pure adrenaline, holding a sword that had actually been used for its intended purpose tonight. 2 months ago, this sword didn't exist. This village had no walls. These people had no homes. And I had no food. Now, walls standing, bandits destroyed, people safe, imperial recognition earned, 500 silver taels richer, and a plaque that basically said, "This kid is officially a big deal." Evening. Sunset painting the sky red over intact rooftops and unburned fields. Smoke rising from kitchens, not fires. Children playing, not hiding. The village had survived its first real test and come out stronger. Xiaoruoli stood beside me at the gate, looking at the plaque. Nobody will dare underestimate Wang Family Village again. I nodded, gripped the sword in my hand. This blade drank bandit blood tonight, and it would keep drinking if anyone else came for my people. I built this place with fish and determination. I defended it with steel and fury, and I would do it again. Every single time. Come for my village. See what happens.